All right, we are live, and I'm just going to post an announcement so that everyone has the opportunity to jump on in here. So, Zulu, I've got some really interesting callers lined up actually for next week. I'm looking forward to that, and I hope that in the meantime, we get some unplanned callers this week. So, just to get us started while everyone files in here, we get some attention. I'm going to go through some questions that were put through on text to get us started. So, the first question that I thought was actually kind of interesting, I just think that it speaks to a lot of issues that beginners have, is if I poison a Big Mac and leave it on someone's doorstep, is that aggression? And then, if so, why?
So I'd say in the first case, if you just leave a Big Mac on someone's doorstep, that would already be aggression because that's littering on their property. That is not the understood means of doorsteps. Now, if it was a church and you left a baby on that doorstep, that's fine. That's not littering. If it was like you're delivering mail to them, like a package, you can leave that on their doorstep. Certainly, that's what they're communicating by having a path leading up to it. Um, but a Big Mac, that it's not, unless you're a food delivery driver, that's not understood to be acceptable thing to do because it's going to mold. It's going to be horrible. Um, Now, a related question: what if I just leave? If I just poison a Big Mac and leave it out somewhere, and then somebody comes along and eats it? Is that aggression? Not necessarily, because I mean, if you leave a Big Mac in any location long enough, it'll poison itself. That's kind of how food goes. It'll poison itself after a sufficient amount of time. If you're going around eating suspicious meals that you just find lying around, I feel like you can't really complain too much about them being poisoned.
Yep, I think that's a great answer. I was sort of going through my head there, um, through what some branching topics might be um, relating to that, but I think it's pretty much fully answered with your answer, your response there. So here's another similar question: if I built a dome around the moon, would that mean that I had homesteaded the moon, and would I be permitted to destroy the moon then? And I think I want to add on to that is I think the implication about destroying it more than just like because that would be a large operation in and of itself is that it affects the tides. Maybe that's a complicating factor.
Yeah, definitely. Like so, yeah, if you did dome off the entire moon, you built like a big sphere around the whole moon, then you are excluding people from the moon. As far as I'm aware, there's nobody on the moon at the moment, so that would be perfectly fine. Um, but yeah, I do agree. Like, if I were to just blow up the moon, then I would be interfering with other people's property on Earth because, well, as it turns out, the tides are pretty important. You'd be messing all that up. So I think I would agree with your analysis there.
Sweet. Okay, and we do have some callers in the queue. If you're watching, you can join the Discord through the link that's in the pinned comment here on YouTube, and that'll take you right to the Discord is where you can join basically here. We're on StreamYard, but you can go into our voice channel, and that'll get you into the process of getting onto the StreamYard. Um, Now, before the person comes through the screening process, I do have another question here. Is it contradictory or perhaps even immoral for an Ancap to receive welfare payments from the state, such as an unemployment check, even without ever having voted for such a policy or supporting the welfare state in other ways?
So that's definitely an important caveat there, because if you are going out and trying to petition for some specific welfare to be introduced, then yeah, that is aggression. You're trying to get the state to steal more money. Um, but it's not inherently immoral or criminal for you to just accept the welfare payments that are already going out. Now, there are limits to it. Um, for instance, if you are accepting welfare because you were taxed an amount of dollars, well, then you're just getting your money back from the state, right? And you're taxed in so many goddamn ways. Like, it's going to be, unless you're just like a total welfare queen, like living on welfare your entire life, you're unlikely to, if you've been productive at all, you're very unlikely to actually run into the limit there. The limit would be basically getting back what was stolen from you. Um, So that would be perfectly legitimate as far as, and in fact, you could even any income people are making from the government, you could even tack that on there, like that they shouldn't be making that income if they're like a government contractor or what have you. And so you could tack that on there, but it becomes very complicated how exactly to divvy that up, and in your own life you can't really make that calculus too much. So long as you're not going out there and trying to be a welfare queen, I think you're probably on the right tracks.
We do have some calls ready to come in, so we got to pivot off this topic. But before we go, I think it's just worth adding for anybody who's new to the topic that this endorsement of saying, it's a permissible, it's morally acceptable to be receiving welfare payments because it's essentially your money coming back to you. That's not the same as us saying it's okay to support welfare policies in a more political and direct way. All right, so we're going to go into our first caller now. I'm going to bring them onto the stage. Ready? So DMM, you're on the air. We can hear you. And the call
Hey,
screener did share your question with us, but why don't you go ahead and take the floor and we'll riff off of that.
all right. So my question is, do you think that there's any diversity in ANCAP thought beyond like the NAP and different things like that? Like just basic sort of copy paste, like first principles that everyone sort of bases everything off of. Is there any diversity in that? And if so, can you give any examples? And if not, why is that a good thing?
So
Well,
I could get, oh, sorry, you go ahead. I've been answering them all so far.
sure, sure. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Zulu in just a moment, anyhow. But I do want to say, sort of the premise of this show is entirely meant to expose that there's a diversity in ANCAP thought. So Zulu and myself are not mirror images of each other ideologically. And there's other speakers I'd love to have on soon. I thought I was going to have one on actually this week, and it looks like it might be just next week. But my point is, there's all kinds of different ways to be an ANCAP, and there are certain things that you shouldn't expect there to be diversity on because those are the things that define you as an ANCAP in the first place. So that would be things like statelessness, or more importantly, more fundamentally, like adherence to the non-aggression principle. So with the non-aggression principle being as important to the ideology as it is, I don't think that if somebody's not conforming in that way, then they would be not an ANCAP just by definition. So you shouldn't expect there to be diversity there. But otherwise, Zulu is an objectivist. I'm not an objectivist, and that leads to all kinds of big differences. In a previous stream, we had actually we had the opportunity to show a really big difference in explicit detail, which was the question regarding free will. But in terms of like, if you draw a circle around what makes us an ANCAP, those differences don't cause any complications for us at all. And that's really one of the most important messages I want to get out there, is that being an ANCAP is, in a sense, an extremely inclusive ideology, because of adherence to that first principle still gives so much room for that, I guess. And I'll just say, before I hand it back over to Zulu, some other examples. So objectivism versus more subjectivist positions, but also another big one is theism versus atheism. These are, an atheist and a theist have like huge worldview differences, and yet within the ANCAP umbrella, you can see atheists and theists being the absolute best of political neighbors. So that's my answer. Zulu, you can take it from there.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm in complete agreement. So I think this is the real distinction here is between thick libertarianism and thin libertarianism. That is two different positions in what libertarianism means. So the thick libertarians, they believe that there are extra considerations outside of the non-aggression principle, which either make or break whether you're libertarian. These were initially like the leftist sorts, where it's like, no, if you're going to be a libertarian, then you've also got to support gay people. You've also got to support black people. And you've got to do this, that, and the other thing, right? You've basically got to be a leftist, or else you're not a true libertarian. And now some of the rightists are also trying to play that same gambit. So I and I believe Galazar are both thin libertarians, where all you got to believe is the non-aggression principle. You can have any sorts of beliefs outside of that umbrella. I'm an objectivist. Galazar isn't, I don't believe. There are theists. Prax Ben's a theist. I certainly have big disagreements with him on a lot of that prior philosophy, but none of that has anything to do with the non-aggression principle. So we're both libertarians and we're both anarcho-capitalists, and we can both work on this one issue, which I think is a very important issue to work together on. It's libertarianism I see as a coalition. It's not, that doesn't mean just let anybody in. It doesn't mean, we're going to just allow any old entryist into our tent. Where I'm not being a coalition doesn't mean you have to be a big tent. We can be a very, very small tent and still be a coalition on the non-aggression principle. And now, even within libertarian theory, there are differences. There are differences in how you think the non-aggression principle applies to some particular issue. So, for instance, there's the donut homestead problem. I believe Walter Block was the first one to propose this. I'm not sure about that, though. So it's basically if you homestead a ring around some unhomestead property and you've got unhomestead property on either side, what happens there? Is this a legitimate arrangement? Now, there's great diversity there. Some people think, yeah, just fuck it. It's fine. They want a homestead a donut. Then they're perfectly allowed to do that. I'm of the position that by homesteading that donut, you have therefore excluded people from the donut hole, and therefore you own both the donut and the donut hole. I think that's the correct position. But if somebody already owns the donut hole, well, then you're forestalling their property. And I think that is a form of crime. Now, there's disagreements over that, because this is an application of the NEP to some particular issue. And you see this all over the case. But fundamentally, these disagreements, they still are parts of libertarianism. And I think it is important that we allow for such debate to occur, because we've seen how the objectivist movement has been completely torn asunder by having this religious devotion to like the Church of Ayn Rand, where if you disagree on any little bit, like they're called the closed objectivists. This is the equivalent of the thick libertarians, right? The closed objectivists, if you disagree with any like minutia of the philosophy, well, you've rejected Ayn Rand, you've rejected the church doctrine, so we've got to banish you now. Like this is what happens to movements when that's the attitude, and it leads them to just die. Those movements die off. That's why I'm a very strong advocate of open objectivism, which is the equivalent of thin libertarianism. It's very not healthy for a movement to have this attitude where people have to line up on every single application and every single prior thing all across the board, even if it's irrelevant to the philosophy. That you've got to line up on it. You've got to, if you don't hate Mozart, then you're not in our club, right? It's ludicrous stuff like that, which I think kills movements, and in a sense that makes it a self-solving problem, because these people, they just kind of die off in terms of the history of philosophy.
So I guess I have a follow-up question. So in order to be an anarcho-capitalist, I guess you would agree that you have to have you have to believe in the NAP, right? I don't understand why it would necessarily mean that that your philosophy comes from the NAP, because if you base everything off of those first principles of the NAP, then it gives you a very narrow toolbox to work with, and you end up coming out with a lot of similar or just very limited ideas, I would say. And I mean, maybe that's a good thing. I'm not sure, but in your eyes, but I think it just from a bottom up perspective, sure, the NAP is a great foundation work to go forward with. But sometimes you have to do blueprints from the top down, or from the middle, in both directions, or something like that. You can't just work from just pour the cement and then expect a building to come forth in some way, right? I don't know. I don't think that the NAP is necessarily the philosophical fountainhead, if you will, that should be the cornerstone of every single Ancap ideology. If that
Well,
makes sense.
well, so like, what would be the alternative fountainhead for libertarian or anarcho-capitalist thought? Like, I'm not sure what the other possible like premise or principle or what have you could be. Okay, this is the defining feature of anarcho-capitalism. This is what distinguishes the libertarian philosophy from every other philosophy. Like, I'm not sure what else there could be, because outside of that, there are disagreements among libertarians, unless you think they aren't libertarians. Like, what do you think that the defining feature would be?
I mean, the first thing I would say that would be a defining feature would be like anarchy and capitalism. I mean, just off the cuff, right? And after that, I mean, it would just be up to the user, to be honest. Like, as long as you have the end goal of anarchy and capitalism and a way to attain those things, then I don't understand why why you would need to adhere to some narrow philosophical toolbox that only allows you some amount of some amount of some amount of leeway.
So, I would say, imagine my name is Vladimir Lenin, where I have all of the beliefs that Lenin had in real life, and I say, yep, what I'm going for with these beliefs is anarchy and capitalism. Would you consider that to be like a legitimate viewpoint to hold? Like, would I be actually going for anarchy or capitalism? Like, how do we evaluate whether somebody is indeed going for anarchy and capitalism unless we have a principle like the non-aggression principle? Where Lenin, you could say, no, he's not going for the non-aggression principles. He's not going for anarchy and capitalism, even if he might say so.
Do you feel, DMM, that we've answered your question there?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, well, we're going to move on to our next caller, but I want to give you the chance to add the last word before we do.
Me?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just sorry. There's a lot of things going on while you were finishing up, but yeah. I guess I would just say that I still personally think that there's a lot of different ways to go about attaining an anarcho-capitalist system, and even if you have to go through like some sort of like middle system, like as Hop suggests, maybe like monarchistic or something, to get to the place where you want to be, which is anarcho-capitalism in the end. I think it shouldn't be discounted as like being like I mean, like, of course, like you should like uh, do so, but through best principles, like through your best principles, but not necessarily the nap, but some sort of some through some way that allows you to minimize possibly damage and hopefully not even in this wheelhouse, but casualties or something. But I wouldn't even consider that. But you know, like just I I think there has to be some sort of different way to get there that's more reasonable, like a different that doesn't require the strict adherence to something such as the nap, or you know or everything that comes directly from that.
Gotcha. Well, that was your last word. Thanks so much for calling in. I think that what you're talking about there at the end is actually really interesting and worth getting more into. But we got so many calls queued up. We got to make sure everyone's getting about the same amount of time. So feel free if you want to sort of take your last thoughts there and, I don't know, sort of refine them into a really concise topic and call in about it next week. Or maybe we can even have a discussion between now and next week if the opportunity presents itself. Until then, thanks for calling in, and we'll see you again soon.
Yep.
All right, thanks so much. So that was our first caller, and we're gonna move on to our next caller now. And our next caller is Lexter. Lexter, you are on the stage. You can't be seen, but you can be heard. So Lexter, how are you?
Hello.
All
How
right,
are you? Ah,
we're
you
doing
can
great.
hear me.
I
Thank
can.
God.
All right, thanks so much for calling in. The screener did share the question. It had to do with voluntary slavery, but if you want to start the conversation, just go for it. Present your question, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, this came up in the Discord chat. We were discussing, and it came up, as it does. And I want to know your opinion. Is it possible in anarcho-capitalism to have voluntary slavery? And by that, let's not go into the debate. What is slavery? What I mean is the relationship that we know when we talk about slavery. Okay, so imagine the relationship between the slave and the master, and if it's possible to go into that relationship voluntarily. What do you think?
So there's one particular part about voluntary slavery which doesn't work, namely that I can't actually transfer ownership of myself to somebody else. I don't think that's possible. Now, you can act as a slave, if you want to be in like some sort of BDSM relationship or something. You could obey any orders of the supposed slave master, but fundamentally at any point you could go, nah, don't want to do this anymore, and walk off, and there wouldn't be shit that the slave master could say about that. Now, that's very distinct from slavery as we know it.
Okay, can I jump in?
Sure.
So no, we are not talking about the BDSM right now. We are talking about economical slavery. Let's call it.
Right. I'm saying that that's just one example of
Okay, but we
slavery
agree.
that you could have. But
Yeah.
the fundamental point is that you could call off that relationship at any point. Even if
Really?
it's like, till my fields or whatever, you could go, nah, I don't want to do this anymore, and then walk off.
Okay, I like this idea. So this sounds more what I would like to hear. So I just want to, is it, but then the relationship I was talking about, you couldn't do that in that relationship before. So what's actually preventing me to create a contract with somebody that states that I cannot do this? I cannot just leave. I have to follow the contract and to be the slave because that's what I sign up for.
So I think I should clarify on what we consider legitimate contracts. We accept the title transfer theory of contracts, which says that all a contract is it defines the transfer of title to property from one person to another person. So a contract isn't saying, I promise that I will do X, Y, Z. It's saying, upon these conditions, I will transfer this to this person, or this to this other person, so on and so forth. That's all a contract can do. Just a set of terms which define the transfer of title to property. So, in the case of a slave, you could write on paper, I will obey everything on the condition that you say, on the condition that you give my family $5 million. You could write that on paper. It wouldn't be a valid contract, because what that's trying to claim is that I'm transferring title of my own body to you, and you transfer title of the $5 million to somebody else. That's illegitimate. So how we get here is because it's, in the first case, it's not actually possible to alienate your body. I think that for a first principles derivation of the title transfer theory of contracts, it is a simultaneous abandonment and homesteading of some particular good. You can't do that step of abandonment with your body. Like, I can't just say, well, I've now abandoned my body, and then continue walking around and moving. Like, I've clearly not abandoned. I'm just saying words. Be like, I abandoned this water bottle, and I keep walking around with it and drinking it. Like, I've clearly not abandoned the thing, right? Everybody can see that I have not abandoned that thing, and that's the case for your body as well. Unless you could, sever your consciousness from your body somehow. Maybe that's possible with like future technology. I'm not so sure about that. And then you could sell your body on, and it'd be basically a corpse at that point.
I still think that there is some kind of miscommunication, because I'm still describing the relationship that we had before, and in that relationship, the people still could move their bodies. They still own their bodies in your sense, right? In the slavery that was, in
Well, so how
America.
are you seeing this contract actually working if it's not a transfer of the slave's body to the owner?
The contract states that the relationship between them would be as if the same relationship that we had before in America. So the master could do anything that the master before could do. Like the only difference between those two relationships I'm just presenting is that in anarcho-capitalism, the slave master relationship started because the slave and the master came into legitimate contract in the view of the market, because they created contracts, both of them agreed, and they both have like private courts and lawyers, and they all said, okay, this is a valid contract, and they just have this relationship. So the slave has to live on his property, work for him, and they will receive food and shelter as it stated on the contract, and they cannot leave, and they have to obey his orders. And if they break this contract, they will be punished as the slaves were in the history. So I understand that you are saying that you cannot actually own another human being, as in control it as a pencil. That's sure, because you cannot control their thoughts, for example. Okay, but that's like philosophical, metaphysical discussion that I don't really care about. I care about the material, the material difference.
So I want to be clear about what this supposed contract would actually be. That's just a promise. Like, it's just saying, in effect, I promise that I will obey your every order and I will allow you to beat me, and so on and so forth, and I will not pursue any prosecution yet. That's just a promise. So promises aren't actually contracts in our view. I could promise that I will have sex with you tomorrow night, but at the time I could go, nah, I don't want to do that anymore, and I might have broken my promise. That might be wrong of me to break my promise, but it is still just a promise. There is no legal culpability there.
So what is the difference between normal employer-employee contract, labor contract? You sell your labor, but you're actually selling also your time. Sorry, different language. You're selling your time. You're selling your actually freedom, because you have to listen to them on the workplace, because they have to order you to do something that you didn't actually sign the contract for. It's just some specific thing that you have to do at that specific time, because they tell you to do this because you are working there. You have to listen to the boss. So
there is actually no difference here, because if I had a job at like McDonald's, on our theory, if I didn't like one of my boss's orders, I could go, nah, don't want to do this anymore, and walk out the door, and there would be no legal culpability for me there either.
You are breaking the contract. You are stealing it.
So I don't think it's possible to break a contract. They could go, oh, you didn't fulfill the terms of our contract, so we're not going to pay you.
That's what I mean.
They could do that, but that doesn't mean the contract is broken. I'm just doing one of the defined actions within the contract. That isn't breaking any contract.
That's weird semantics right now. So, okay, so you are not fulfilling the contract. In my view, that's breaking the contract. That there are some rules of the contract. You are not fulfilling your promise, as you said.
Well, I didn't fulfill the terms needed for me to get the paycheck, certainly, and so they don't have to give me the paycheck.
But what if there are other clauses in that contract saying, for example, that not only that they actually want money from you because they expected your work, and therefore when you don't work, they lost profits because suddenly they don't have a worker there, but they expected a worker, so you're actually stealing their time, energy, stuff like that.
No. You can troll people in anarcho-capitalism. That's fine, but they could have a term if they were worried about employees walking off the job. They could have a term which says, if you walk off the job, defined in these terms, then you transfer title of like $1,000 to us, as repayment. They could have a term like that, and then I would have to give up that money. But there is no criminality in me applying for a job, getting a job, and then just screwing them by walking in and going, nah, and then walking right back out the door again.
Okay, but
there's no criminality involved there. It might fuck them over, so then they're not going to want to hire me anymore. But there's no criminality there.
Sorry, but there is consequences, as you said, because there consequences could be some kind of.
There are consequences, but that doesn't mean that they're criminal, right?
Fine, but then so let's say you not fulfill the contract. They will say, okay, pay the fee, and you don't pay the fee.
Well, that would be theft.
Right. Exactly. So So
like what? Like yeah, that would be theft. If you don't pay the fee which you agreed to, then yeah, that's theft.
So, but you said that this employee-employer contract is similar to the slave and slave contract. So, if the slave breaks the contract, let's say, or not doesn't fulfill the promise, which is listening to the master, they can accept some kind of consequences.
You have a contract like that where if you break off this slave arrangement, then you've got to pay me $1,000. You could absolutely have a contract like that. There's no problem.
But okay, and if they don't pay, then they are also stealing. They are stealing from the master. Okay, so isn't this kind of coercion though? Or are you saying this is legitimate because it's theft, so you can actually force the
so it would be coercion. You're coercing them to give you the money that they owe you. Like coercion just means forcing someone to do something.
So
it's not inherently bad.
Well, let's say that the fee is not money, and let's say that they say that they can accept the different punishment, like beating up the slave.
So that wouldn't be legitimate. You can't because there is no transfer of title to property. You can't have that as a penalty clause in a contract that you will accept a beating. Because I could just say at the time, no, I don't want to do that beating actually, because that's just a promise, right?
Okay, so sure. So then it's $1,000, let's say, and they don't pay, so they are thieves. So what happens to them then?
Well, then you'd be allowed to go and take the money from them.
What if they don't pay? Or they don't have money because there were slaves.
Money. If they refuse hard enough, then you could come over with big guys with guns and say, "Give us the money, or we're going to shoot you in the head."
Okay, so
if they don't give the money, then you shoot them in the head.
So let me describe this. So voluntary so in my opinion, voluntary slavery is exactly as you describe right now. You accept this relationship, and in that relationship, if you don't follow this relationship, you will be forced by somebody to actually do you're not
forced to actually go ahead with the relationship still.
Sorry, you are not
give up money you owe.
Yes, there is still a threat of violence if you don't follow this, because you have no money, so you actually cannot pay really.
Oh, actually, if you have no money, well, then that term is null and void. So that would be an aleatory condition.
What if they say?
I want to clarify that. So for instance, if I make a contract with Galazar that he gives me $1,000 today, and I'll give him $1,100 in a year's time, and then when a year's time comes and I don't have any money, I'm destitute, then I don't owe him any money. That contract is just written off, like it was just a bad investment on his part.
But you have labor, so why not making you into a slave to pay your fee as slave?
What do you mean?
Well, you don't have any money, but you still owe him, and he can say, "Okay,
I don't
owe
him anymore because that part of the contract is nullified."
No, you just nullified. But why would the one saying because let's say that you have somebody who and they own, but they don't have money, and they can say, "Oh, so it's fine. I don't have to give you anything because I have nothing." And they say, "Well, you have your labor, so you can pay me through your labor."
Right, but that's not actually property. In legal theory, there is no property called labor. Right, labor is something you do with your property.
I'm talking about practical terms right now, because
it's not part of contract theory.
Okay, interesting. So, I think that we ran this down as far as we could.
Wait, Galzar, do you want to hop in on all?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Sorry for not speaking more during that exchange. I thought it was really interesting. Unfortunately, we got raided for the first time by a communist Reddit, apparently. That's what the raiders claim to be coming from. I don't know if that's actually the case or not. So I was flattered by that, but unfortunately they did get the result they wanted, which was that I got distracted. I had to ban them. So if I understand correctly, Lex, if I may, it sounds like, and I want you to tell me if this is like, if I'm representing your position here sufficiently accurately, your concern that maybe the Ancap ideology creates this vulnerability to enslavement, and your line of questioning is sort of trying to get to the bottom of whether that's the case or not. Is that kind of where the conversation's going?
Yes, that's one of the fears I have about ideology.
Sure. And I mean, I'd love to get into every single one of those concerns you have, but just because of the limitations of the show, we have to stick to just one. So I'm curious then, you've had the opportunity to speak with Zulu. It looks like, I don't know, 15 minutes or so there. Has he assuaged your concerns about the Ancap ideology being vulnerable to slavery-like exploitation, or are you just as concerned about that as when you originally called in?
No, but I think that he showed me that there is like a theoretical possible explanation that could like not I guess justify not allowing voluntary slavery in some ways. But I think that there are no actual practical mechanisms in our in that ideology to actually prevent this or do anything about it. Actually.
Sure. Well, let me just go right into that because my next question is going to be, given that you still have those concerns, what specific concern is that? And I think you kind of tacked that onto the end of your
Yeah,
answer.
that's kind of unfair to look at it, I guess, because that's more like a broad critique of the whole ideology, because I think it's very idealistic. I think that it's nice to have coherent, let's say, in at least some ways, ideology without too much contradictions. But then when it's applied to practical reality, it doesn't hold up.
Sure.
Because it has some kind of holes, conceptual holes. So just put an example. I think that it's completely possible to have the society in anarcho-capitalism that just happens to have the situation on the market where everybody owns slaves because that was the most profitable thing to do. And I think that there is no actual, like the legal theory doesn't really matter because the owners decided this, the private market decided this, and your ideas, they don't care about them. They care about profits.
So I want to sort of challenge that. And Zulu, even though I'm sort of taking the opportunity to answer here too, you're still welcome to chime in. So don't feel like we're taking complete turns here. I want to frame the question a little differently because I do hear the concern you're expressing about that anarcho-capitalism is an achievable state of affairs, but that state of affairs can't resolve certain issues. So the way that I would sort of frame that question is to say, we have a set of individuals. It doesn't matter the size of that set. We can make it, if you want to have like a really simple hypothetical, you can say it's, 10 people. Obviously, society is millions of people. But the framing I want to present is you've got a set of people, has X number of members, and they are the only thing they have in common in this set is that they are all adhering to the NAP. They're all respecting the expectation that they don't initiate conflict. That's what they have in common. So, can this set of people resolve the problem that you have? And the problem that you're concerned with is slavery. And I think that under this framing, it should become much more readily apparent that anarcho-capitalism, as we're explaining it or as we're advocating for it, doesn't really have this sort of, or at least we're suggesting it doesn't really have those vulnerabilities. So, like for example, I'm gonna shoot like the simplest possible explanation, and then you tell me why you don't find this convincing. Got all these people. The only thing they have in common is they want to initiate conflict, and they become aware of a relationship between two people that is actually aggressive, meaning that the initiation of conflict is inherent in this relationship, and that's we would say that slavery is one such um, arrangement. Zulu, I think you might have to correct me here if I get my phrasing a little coarse, but the idea, like he was explaining earlier, you can't alienate yourself from your body. You can't abandon your body. And so, because of the fact that you're basically stuck in an ownership relationship over your body, if you and somebody else are interacting as if you've given up ownership over your body, even though that can't happen, then they're, by interacting with you that way, they're actually initiating a conflict over a scarce resource. That's like this simplified interpretation, let's say. So we got this set of people who are all adhering to the NAP, they become aware of this. How can they solve this without committing aggression? Well, inherent to the NAP is that when aggression is taking place, we're not advocating for a total objection to force as such. We're advocating for not initiating force.
Okay,
if somebody
defense. Sure.
so if somebody starts to attack you, but also if somebody attacks somebody else, you're able to, without,
Right.
you don't have to get a contract first. You can interfere on their behalf. It's automatically justified. It's the same way. Let's take a step away from slavery for a second. If Zulu puts me in a cage and walks away, and you stumble across me in the cage, then you're able to justify breaking Zulu's property, which is the cage, in order to get me out.
Okay, can I jump in?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So I just want to frame it this way. All I'm trying to say is, for what we're advocating for is the NAP, essentially just, and you will have a concern that the NAP in practice creates these loopholes. So my framing was, is it the case or is it not the case that a group of people adhering to the NAP can solve this problem? And I've given you an example of why that problem is easily and simply solved by a group of people following the NAP. So
Okay.
do you not find that convincing?
I think that it's convincing in the sense that there is possible explanation or justification or an argument for why this kind of relationship is aggression. Fine, but the problem is that NAP is kind of useless because the non-aggression can mean whatever subjective opinion you have about aggression. So if you have 10 people who agree about NAP, they might not agree what aggression actually means. Now, so one of them could actually be a communist and say that actually private property is aggression, for example. Now you might disagree, of course, but that's just one problem.
So
the second,
let's just stop there because it'll make it easier for us to just take one point at a time. I have to disagree with you there because there's, when we're talking about words, we're talking about, you've got the label and then you've got the meaning that the label is pointing to, right? So when we're advocating for the non-aggression principle, we're advocating for a specific thing. So it's entirely what you said before is trivially true, that people can say they're adhering to the NAP and they can mean anything by NAP. But that has nothing to do with what we're advocating for, because we're advocating for you can take the label away from us. Say yes. Zulu and I are no longer able to call it the NAP. That doesn't matter. What matters is the specific thing that we're advocating for, and that's not a subjective thing.
I was picking on it because it's a rhetorical thing, because calling it NAP sounds better, but it's just a rhetorical smokescreen, because to me, NAP, when I hear it for the first time, without understanding what it actually means, I hear aggression, and I can have different understanding of aggression, as I said. But putting that aside, that's not that important, because as you said, there is some underlying thought behind this term, and that thought is practically capitalism. It's private property. So that's the, I would say, begging the question when somebody argues just by saying that communists breaking NAP, what they mean is communists breaking private property rights, which is okay. And we can put that in your example and say those 10 people, they all agree about NAP, as you put it, as capitalist NAP, and that's great. But that still gives the power to decide what aggression means to those who actually decide these things in capitalism. Who decides this? Is it some kind of idea floating in the ether, or is it actually people who actually make laws? And those people have incentives, different incentives than you, for example.
I want to be clear about our position. Our position is a philosophical one about what is and is not licit, namely that aggression is illicit, non-aggression is licit. So this doesn't actually, it's not that the law is coming from somebody. That's a position known as legal positivism, that the law is posited, that it comes from social facts, right? We don't think that the law is based on social facts. We're natural law theorists. So it might be the case that people are pretending to be anarcho-capitalists and they're making, and they're quote unquote making laws, decreeing certain things in the name of capitalism, but that we're against that.
Okay, sorry, I see. So you are saying that in this hypothetical society when you look at it, it looks like anarcho-capitalism because there is no state and you have just private property and market and entities on the market exchanging goods, stuff like that. But when you look at the laws, you see that the private owners decided stuff that you think is actually not legitimate because it's not what you think is legal. Is that they would not be actually anarcho-capitalist then? It would just look like it, but so
Sorry, there's a raid going on. I was distracted. Please repeat.
so
Zulu, you take the reins there. I'll focus on the server so you can answer the question. I'm sorry about that, guys.
You're gonna have to check out general chat. There's
Oh,
You know,
the
I'm
communists.
working through it. It's a complicated issue. We'll take care of it. As you focus on the call, I'll take care of that.
okay.
all right. Yeah,
So
please.
You have hypothetical society that's anarcho-capitalism actually without state. There is no state. You have private entities that are operating on the market economy, and you have private courts, private police. And when you look at it, you will find out that all the private courts have similar rules, and all those rules, let's say there are rules that you think are actually illegitimate because they don't follow your legal theory. As you said, I assume you think it's objective. And they don't follow it because that's how the market shaped their understanding, because there was no demand for the objective laws, as you said. So would you say that society is not anarcho-capitalist then? Would you say that's some kind of perversion?
Yeah, I mean, if so, the very definition we would go on what a private court is that it is adhering to the NEP, or else it's not engaged in private activities. Also, I think we need to do some like serious.
I'm
apology,
working on
but-
it right now.
So I'm trying to figure out how the hell they got that app in here in the first place.
I didn't call them, I swear.
No, it's all right. I wouldn't be mad at you even if you did. But I do apologize that you were being distracted is interfering.
Oh no, but like I just explained it, that he's saying that what I said at the beginning, it's totally total idealism, just describing the same society, just with esoteric concepts that you can just say it's not true capitalism because it doesn't follow. But the problem here, I think, is that maybe it's not you too, but anarcho-capitalism is political ideology, and it's pushing for a political or some organization of society, political. So it's kind of weird when you disagree with that, just because it doesn't follow your specific idea how it should look like.
Well, yeah, because our idea is correct about what it would look like.
But then you are, but you still are for capitalism. You want still private property markets, contracts, as I explained that, right? No state. So the society I explained is completely possible in your ideology.
Sorry, I'm trying to deal with.
We're
this.
nearly done. I've got the loophole. The vulnerability's been fully closed. It's just a matter of cleanup now, and I'm nearly finished that process.
Yeah, so apologies to the caller here. We're dealing with an issue, unfortunately. Why don't they just let you fucking ban these apps? I don't get it. Like, why?
Yes.
Why is that like immortal? Why would they do that?
Well, the thing is, it's weird because obviously that means that you can't just remove their message history and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But everything is under control there, so don't let it distract from the call too much, because now it's just a little bit of legwork that I'm gonna work through with our call screener, and it'll be taken care of permanently very shortly.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely have to check out how they were able to add an app, because I don't understand how they were able to do that.
There's a permission that's enabled by default, and it's called use external apps. And because it's enabled by default, they were able to sort of connect in that way.
Okay. Yes. So apologies to the caller. I'm now scrolling away from that channel, and I will be full attention towards you.
I leave now. It's fine.
Are you satisfied? Apologies for the lackluster.
I can. It's fine. It's easier to debate you if you are not, focusing on me. So, where was I? Oh yeah. It to me it's weird that when I describe your society with it's completely possible, and you just deny it because it doesn't fulfill your like personal understanding of the law. To me, it's kind of like the communist, like Marxist-Leninist saying, well, actually nobody says this, but the stereotype of not true communism.
So I mean, them saying not true communism. The reason why that's problematic is because it was true communism. That's exactly what every communist inevitably ends up doing. That's what they have to end up doing based on their philosophy.
The problem is that that's confusion of two types of communists, because the Marxist-Leninists actually liked Stalin, so they are not saying it's not true communism, and the other communists never said that they liked it and didn't really want it. So that is
they didn't like it because he wasn't their friend, so they got purged. Right, that's the only reason they don't like it. It's perfectly in line with the philosophy.
What? They no, it's not. It's completely different.
No, it absolutely is in line. Any type of communism necessarily degrades into dictatorship. That it has to, based on the philosophy.
So you are denying, like, the whole history of primitive communism?
Yes, I'm denying that there's such a thing called primitive communism because I reject dialectical materialism. So I don't accept that as a historical category.
But the idea is that that's factual idea that
I know that the idea is that primitive man was communist. I know that that's the idea, but it's false. Right? He's not a historian. He wasn't a historian.
No.
He's making this theory of dialectical materialism.
I'm talking about Marx. I'm talking about
dialectics.
I'm talking about.
I'm not required there to be a historical communism period.
No. I'm not talking about Marx. Let's forget communism. But
that's where it comes from. Dialectical materialism.
Yes, that's where it comes from. But then when scientists actually looked into it, political anthropologists and anthropologists in general, they find out that it's true in the sense that hunter-gatherers, one type of hunter-gatherer societies, are very egalitarian and they have collective decision-making. They have direct democracy. They have stuff that the communists want, except for, the modern production.
So I don't even think communists necessarily want direct democracy.
No, well, that's the goal. That's the no classes, no state. That's the goal.
So they don't want democracy of the, for instance, the bourgeoisie. They don't want the bourgeoisie to have a vote.
Because so no classes mean no bourgeoisie. So there would be no one.
Right, after they've purged the bourgeoisie, then only people who are revolutionaries are allowed to decide what happens. Any counter-revolutionaries are not allowed to decide what happens. Well, just like them, they go to Gulag or they go get purged, right?
That's funny, but bourgeoisie is just a title. So it's purging a title. It's a social construct. It's not
just a title. It's a species of man in their view. You have a different logic. They're polylogists.
I think that there is some weird stereotyping going on, but okay.
It's not stereotypes. This is what they say. This is what the communists are saying.
Let's just
gentlemen. I apologize. Let me jump in here. So we do have a super packed list of callers there, and I got totally distracted.
Are you sure they are not communists?
Let me just say this. So, I just want everyone to understand we got raided there. They were attacking our channel, and that's why we got distracted. Basically, there was a vulnerability in our Discord server, which is the technology that we use to facilitate calls. Before you can get into the show, you got to go to our Discord server. Links in the pinned comment, by the way, and go through the screening process. That's how you get in here. And unfortunately, the Discord server had a vulnerability. So that's totally my responsibility. I should have known about that in the first place. And it's fixed now, hopefully. So I've restored the ability to join the server for anyone who may have been unable to do so over the last half hour. And I just want to say to our communist friends, thanks for watching the show and making me aware of this vulnerability before it could become an actual problem for me. Today was only a mild inconvenience. So I've really been enjoying listening to the call, Lex, and as far as the personal damage, I miss that I didn't get the opportunity to have a more substantial interaction with you. I do want to get to some other callers, though. So
Sure.
what I want to do then, if I may, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to have the last word, and I'd like to invite you to continue this dialogue with us another time, either on the next show or in between now and the next show. So
Ah.
if you think you can sum it up in less than 3 minutes or maybe less than 2 minutes, go for it. Take the last word, and then we'll move on to the next caller.
Yeah, I don't think I can sum everything in 2 minutes, but I will stay in the Discord and I might call again because I need to practice my English, and the only right winger I can talk to is somebody who's libertarian. So, thanks.
It was our pleasure. Thanks so much for calling in. I look forward to having some more with you. Engaging conversations, that is. All right. So, Lex,
Bye-bye.
thanks so much. Appreciate it. Have a good rest of the day. And we'll move on to our next caller now. So, that's our current caller. I'm going to go ahead and move on. So, what do you think, Zulu? You want to have a? He didn't really have the take up the opportunity to take the last call or the last word. I mean, so you take the last word while I try to remember who our next caller is going to be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, obviously, we went through a couple of different things there. Definitely, there is no such thing as voluntary slavery under capitalism, and then we got into the communists later. Yeah, the communists do believe everything that I'm saying they believe. They lie about it. They do lie about it because that's part of the program. It's part of the program for them to lie about what they believe because fundamentally they know that if they were honest about what they believe, nobody would fucking follow them, right? They've got to lie. You've got to be in the proletarian logic. You've got to be of that specific sort of logic, not Aristotle's logic, before you can understand any of it. So they've got to keep it costed away. That's the fundamental philosophy at play here. It's very insidious, very evil. That's why it always leads to dictatorship.
Sweet. And that was all the time I needed to find out who our next caller is going to be, which is Nathan. Nathan's calling in with some Bitcoin related questions. So, Nathan, you're on the line and you are able to speak.
Hello. Yeah, I am. I was just wondering if you guys thought that cryptocurrencies generally would be a better alternative to money, even if you're just transitioning to a society without money, or whatever your personal views on that are. But would you guys consider it a good alternative to money?
So I'm perfectly fine with, for instance, Bitcoin. I think it's got good chances to become money. Now, I don't have any particular opinions over what should or shouldn't be money. Whatever the market decides is money. That's just money. Like it's like languages. It doesn't matter if you've constructed your favorite type of conlang or whatever, and it's superior in ways X, Y, or Z. English won out, so you should probably learn English instead.
Okay, I see what you mean. So do you guys invest into any of it or anything? Do you guys have any interest in it?
Well, yeah, I've got a weekly purchase of Bitcoin going on. That's what I was worried about.
He made it through the call screener. How could this happen? The call screener is doing a great job. It's impossible to catch them all. I had a feeling he was coming. I actually muted or lowered his volume to 10%. But all right, the next caller is Olixa, who is calling in with a philosophical question. So I'm going to Olixa. Are you there with us? You're on the air.
Yep.
All right.
I'm here.
So feel free to just. I read the call screener question, but I think it'll be best if you just tell us right out of the gate what the question is.
Yeah. So my question is regarding the nature of qualia and subjective experience and the objectivist answer to it. So I have three questions I want to ask.
Okay, hold on. Just so you know, objectivism is not in the scope of the. I'm not putting the kibosh on it. But what we'll do here is just ask your questions, and I'll let Zulu give you the answers, and we'll move on to the next caller. Is that all right?
Sure. Okay.
All right. Let's go for it.
So The way I understand it, to say consciousness has identity means it is something definite and lawful. But what is the identity of the subjective field itself? What is the metaphysical status of what it is like to see red or feel pain? Is it reducible to neural activity, an irreducible attribute of living organisms, or something else? Imagine I had a complete third-person physical description of your brain while you see red, every neuron, every chemical, every electrical state, and so on. Would that description contain the redness of the experience itself, or only the physical conditions and correlates of it? So I'm just curious what objectivists think about the mind-body relation and qualia and subjective experiences.
So I would say that you are definitely, you're just looking at the physical representation, like the physical components that allow for that type of thing to happen. But I don't think there are like specific like mind particles or what have you. Red is a relationship between a mind, which is an emergent property of a brain, and something out there, right? That's how you get the quality of redness. So the redness isn't in the mind or in the object. It's a relationship between the two. It's like asking, oh, where is the car crash, right? If a car crashes into a wall, where is the car crash? Is it in the car or in the wall? Well, it's a relationship between the two, right? That's the basic objectivist position on that.
Can I ask a follow-up question regarding the emergence stuff?
Sure, but I'm not particularly well versed in consciousness, though I might be very limited in my ability to explain it.
Okay. My question would then be like, there is kind of a hard standard when you talk about emergence, because like when enough matter is arranged correctly, does subjectivity appear from that? Like how many neurons and in what position? I mean, to me, it almost sounds like a kind of a miracle thinking. So what is it about this arrangement of matter that logically or metaphysically explains the first person experience? If you have an answer, of course.
So I will say that the brain is undoubtedly the most complex thing in the entire universe that we know of. So I'm not so. I mean, certain people have different theories of how consciousness arises. There are ideas floating on that, but I mean, fundamentally, we know very little about neuroscience compared to how much we know about how a jet works or how a gun works. You know, we know comparatively very little about neuroscience. What we know about it mostly comes from, oh, this guy got a damage to this part of the brain and then it had these effects on him. That's mostly what we know about it as far as I'm aware. So it is what specifically about that arrangement gives rise to this, I couldn't tell you. I don't think most people could tell you.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Elixa, I feel like that's a good, healthy dose of the objectivism. I hope that answers all your questions.
Yeah, it does.
Sweet. Thanks so much. You've called in before. Please feel free to call in again. We always like to hear from you. And we're going to head on to our next caller now. Have a good rest of the night.
You too.
All right. And the next caller is Zatidik. Zatidik, I've got your call here, your question on the call screener, but please feel free to, we can just jump right into the dialogue. Share your question with us.
Oh, cool. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Yeah, so I was just wondering about the paper that Zulu wrote on, it was the ethical defense of private property. So I was wondering, like, what's the point of answering mixed law if you can already like answer the latecomer ethic, basically?
So mostly I'm going for like redundancy in that paper. Also, like, you know, I was less developed than I am now. But also I think it still is useful to have this redundancy because technically there is that third option there between jungle ethics and the non-aggression principle. There is a third possibility of mixed law. Now it does reduce into the same problems as jungle ethics, certainly. Ultimately, the choice is between the first comer or the late comer. All that is ultimately the choice at hand here. But for a proper e contrario argument to work, you need to address every possible alternative. If you don't address all the possible alternatives, then it is simply not a complete e contrario.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I was also like in the same question. I have like sort of been thinking about it again, and so I've come to the conclusion that the latecomer is acting has like a revealed preference that is contradictory. Basically, that is assuming in the action that ownership is indistinct from possession, as you say, but also that ownership is also indistinct, not distinct from possession, because he's saying, well, you might have it now, I should have it. I think like Kinsella also maybe I've said it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's wanting to eat your cake and have it too. Like that's why I think this is so strong, because it does just link to pure whim worship ultimately. Like it's just I want it, I want it, I want it. Right? It's nothing to do with justifying your conduct at all.
Yeah, and then you can basically use that to say that you can act as a first comer because he isn't. Well, how would you move on from that to saying that you can act as a first comer?
Sorry, can you please repeat?
How would you go from like he's acting on like a contradictory premise to saying that you can act as a first comer premise using that line of argumentation?
So basically, you can just do Misesian style regression. Like if any latecomer, they're gonna be in contradiction no matter what the fuck, right?
Yeah.
Then who is the only possible person who isn't a latecomer, who didn't take it from somebody else? Well, that's going to be the first comer. That's the only possibility remaining. And you can, that's how you get to it from above, in a certain sense. You can get to it from below by going, okay, well, what are the requirements of human flourishing? Well, you've got to be able to go out there and produce. So that requires that you are able to produce with the things you get. And that's how you can get it to it from below. And the fact that from above and from below they reach at the same point, it's a useful indication that you're on the right tracks there.
All right. That's all for me, I guess.
Sweet. I hope that was a satisfying answer. Thanks so much for calling in. We appreciate it a lot. And I hope
Might
you have
I
a good rest
suggest
of the
that
day.
we go a little bit longer today, perhaps, because there was the dead zone of the raid.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I saw EvoCap in chat.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is
allow me to just like go to the bathroom first before, so I can prepare for an extended session here.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you're in luck, Zetitic. I'm going to keep you on the line until he gets back because I don't want to be alone in a room with EvoCap. That's a scary proposition, and I'm just not up to the task. So I noticed you're asking about a paper that Zulu wrote, and I think you mentioned which one it is. Can you remind me which paper you're referring to?
An ethical defense of private property. I can send it to you if you want.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like I should brush up on that myself because it's a really interesting topic. I'm doing some writing myself right now. I don't want to get into the details too much, but I'm writing on argumentation ethics and basically an attempt at rehabilitating it because I find it to be, I don't know, Zetidik, what do you think? Argumentation ethics, pretty unpalatable for people in general.
Yeah, I see that a lot. Yeah, I mean, I actually did clutch argument on my channel, like my first proper debate. It's probably the only debate I won, and I studied like really hard for it, and I actually clutched the debate.
But you advocated like for your position through argumentation ethics in that debate?
Yes, I argued for the non-aggression principle using argumentation ethics.
Sweet.
I was kind of fumbling like in the middle of it, but I tied it back together and won the argument in the end. So yeah.
That's great. Well, hey, if you think that you've won a debate using argumentation ethics, I think that's pretty impressive. So feel free to link that to me if you want to DM it to me. I'd love to see it because I'm doing a lot of reading and stuff on argumentation ethics right now and writing, and I think that'll be an interesting topic for everybody. So I'm going to, I guess we'll move on now. finally to the next caller soon. So again, Satidik, thanks so much for calling in. Always glad to hear from you, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
All right. Now, I'm not going to bring up evolutionary capitalist yet because, like I said before, Zulu's not here, and I'm afraid. So I'm going to take this opportunity to let everyone know if you're watching the stream and you're new here, you can join the Discord. It's in the pinned comment in the YouTube comments. And the Discord is where you're going to get the opportunity to either ask a question through text, through the Submit Questions channel, or if you join the voice chat, you'll meet our call screener, and the call screener will give you the opportunity to call into the show and ask your question or pose your challenge that way. So please, if you're new, consider sending that through. And if you're not new, but you have friends who are socialists or just generally Ancap skeptic, a lot of libertarians are, we'd love to hear from them too. So consider yourselves invited. And Zulu is back. Can you believe that timing? That was absolutely impeccable. Zulu, the only person in the call queue right now is evolutionary capitalist. So I think I'm going to bring him up if you're ready.
I'm gonna have to. I've prepared myself enough for this. So I'm gonna have to deal with my greatest foe yet, evolutionary capitalist.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, he used to be evolutionary capitalist utilitarian, didn't he? Did he drop the utilitarianism?
I think there's some flexibility in there. I think when you're, evolution is all about adaptability. So we should expect nothing less. All right, Mr. Evolutionary Capitalist, you are on the line. The call screener did share your question with us, but why don't you go ahead?
How's my volume?
Why don't you did that last time, so I had your gain down to 5%. Why don't you share your question with us so we can get right into it?
You guys know Bitcoin's gonna die, right? Right, Zulu?
Of course, it's going to evolve out of existence. So you've got nothing to worry about with respect to that. You don't have to care about it. You can just keep watching it. There is this classic video where he talks about, Bitcoin reached $100, then it crashed all the way down to $20, and then when Bitcoin reached $1,000, it crashed all the way down to $300.
Because
and then Bitcoin reached $10,000 and it crashed all the way down to $2,000. And it keeps crashing, this Bitcoin. It keeps crashing. As soon as it'll reach $1 million, then it'll crash down to 500,000.
I think the reasoning is
it'll keep crashing. So don't worry about it, EvoCap. You just go ahead and don't have any Bitcoin, and I'll keep crashing my way to the moon, I suppose.
I think the reasoning is a little different at 80,000.
So, EvoCap, you did have a specific question in mind, according to the call screener, that had to do with the problem that markets face, the justice problem. Do you want to share with us what the justice problem is?
Yeah, now that I've debunked the idea that the market will provide stable insurance. Did you guys cancel your insurance policies yet? I want to argue that a market not only won't provide stable insurance, but it won't provide stable lock-in arbitration and enforcement based on the fact that it's a dominated business strategy and there's no reason for firms in a market to provide this service. And you're assuming like a potential productive aggressor will just pre-agree to arbitrate based on these stupid rules, these stupid first-comer rules. How about
a productive aggressor?
A productive aggressor, like when someone aggresses and they increase total productivity.
So when somebody is destroying production and they're productive, that's what a productive aggressor is.
No, that's where you're falsely defining like.
Oh, so aggression doesn't destroy production.
Not all aggression.
What types of aggression don't destroy production?
Like in when someone presents a higher bid for property. And they have, no.
Okay, so I've got to translate this into EvoCap terms. By a higher bid, you mean that they're going to spend a lot of money.
Maybe I should finish my opening statement before you start interrogating.
This isn't
all right. Hold on. It's not a debate.
There aren't opening statements.
Because usually your the Socratic method, it doesn't lead anywhere usually. You
all right,
know where you're going before you start that.
EvoCap, I want to say that I've got some questions on the or statements, let's say, on the screen right now. I think you can see them. You're in the StreamYards with me. Would you agree with me that these are at least 3 of the statements you've made so far? Am I accurate?
Let me see. Okay, yeah. First one, yeah, sure. There's no reason for markets to provide this service based upon that it's a dominated strategy. Yeah. I was going to get into it, but I was cut off. Okay, you're assuming that an aggressor will. Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
pre-agree to an arbitration process based upon lock-in norms. Like there's no reason for someone to give up a clear advantage in obtaining property through aggression if necessary.
Perfect. All right. So we got 3 statements now. EvoCap, obviously, we're restricted a little bit in time. So what we're going to try to do here is we're going to focus in on these topics and hopefully give each one of these topics a fair but not infinitely long treatment. So I want to start with markets won't provide stable Lockean arbitration. And I actually want to start talking about this topic in particular by asking Zulu. Zulu, do you think that it's a problem for us, even if it's true that markets won't provide stable Lockean arbitration? Or in other words, is specifically stable Lockean arbitration something that we need to be concerned about?
So I would say on the first point, we don't advocate for anything called Lockean arbitration. That's not a word. That's not a term we use at all. So basically, it's the question that would it be possible for a market to provide arbitration firms based on the NEP? And yeah, obviously that's fucking possible. It's definitely not impossible. Like, it is metaphysically possible for humans to come together and decide to do that. And for there to be a market in the first place, that is a precondition that humans want there to be the NEP enforced. So he's kind of reversing cause and effect a little bit here.
No, there not only has to be like a want for it, there has to be a real demand and real supply for it.
What do you think want means if it's distinct for demand? Like, what are you even saying?
Hold on. And I'm specifically talking about the supply side. There's no reason. It's a dominated strategy, right? This strategy comes with both higher costs and lower revenue for the business. Based upon, arbitrate. And when I say lock-in arbitration, I'm talking about arbitrating and enforcing property ownership based upon lock-in rules, right? First comer and voluntary transfer.
I'm really interested in this sort of invocation of lock. I want to maybe learn more about this from your interaction with Zulu here, but I don't think that the position we're advocating for is intrinsically tied to Locke or his system. So I'm trying to understand why you keep invoking Locke as something that's either necessary.
It wasn't derived from first principles, that's for sure. Where was this first comer voluntary transfer thing derived from? I mean, who's the first one to come up with it?
I came up with it just yesterday, and
Okay.
That's how it came about.
Argumentation ethics, everybody. No, seriously, but who came up with it?
Yeah,
who first implemented
I did yesterday. It's like, I just told you that.
And who first implemented it? It was democracy. This is a property ethic of democracy. Yeah, the market didn't first do this. So
democracy implemented
I
the first comer ethic.
I basically outlined the rough argument, right? It's like if you were to try to open up an enforcement firm based upon these rules, right? You're gonna enforce the will of the first comer or the person who obtained it through voluntary transfer in a chain from the first comer, right? You agree with that, right? If you were to try to start a business with that, you're gonna be outcompeted, if not totally just destroyed.
Why would you be outcompeted?
Because this type of business model comes with higher cost and lower
revenue. Why does it come with a higher cost and lower revenue?
Because I can demonstrate a more dominant business strategy of taking the highest bid, right? And when an enforcement agency,
no, you just said you could demonstrate a better business strategy. Go on.
Yeah, I'm presenting the more dominant business strategy, the one that has lower costs and higher revenue, and makes society better off. As a
what is the business strategy? What is the better business strategy? So we're assuming we're in a world where most people believe in the NEP. Go from there to show the better business strategy being to violate the NEP. Oh, so we're not in that world. We're in the world we currently are. Well, yeah, definitely. You can't have a firm which enforces the NEP in the current world. Duh. Nobody is disagreeing with that.
We're in a pure market system, so it doesn't matter what you believe. It matters what you pay. You can pay.
How do you get a pure market system in the first place? You get there, on our view, by the majority of people believing in the NEP. That's how you get there.
Moderator, do your job.
He's not a moderator, you retard. Like, what are you talking about? This is not a debate between me and you. This is a call-in show.
Okay, so maybe I missed it, and I apologize to everybody if I did miss it. You proposed that there's
not doing your job, counselor.
Evo Cap. I really want to keep you on the show. So you suggested that there's a more dominant business strategy. Did you give us what that specific business strategy is and why it's more dominant?
Enforcing the will of the person with the highest comparative advantage. If you want to simplify, just taking the highest bid, but that's not quite accurate, but it's sufficient for now. So by enforcing the will of the highest bidder in a property conflict, you're using price and profit signals to allocate resources efficiently. Unlike first comer voluntary transfer, this type of property enforcement, right? You don't care about because people's bids indicate what they think they can produce with the property or the happiness it will bring them, and this is why this maximizes total productivity. So number one, it's lower cost because there's no court costs, right? You're not wasting time in sunk cost fallacy trying to analyze historical claims to determine who rightfully owns the property, right? You just hold an auction, compare bids, and start there's going to be a bargaining process before enforcement, right? But then there's going to be enforcement if someone's irrational and doesn't concede the land to the most productive owner. And
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this in sort of a I don't know, somewhat reductive way, but is it just fair to say that you're saying it's more productive, it's more efficient to just whoever has the most money, whoever is just wealthiest?
No, they have to also have the demand for the property, right? Just because they're wealthy doesn't mean they're going to demand the property.
No, but it's more so the highest comparative advantage that is the way you phrased it, and it seems to me, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. It seems to me that the reason that the highest comparative advantage would be relevant at all is because the highest comparative advantage is implying that person is going to be the wealthiest, or is it some other function that I'm looking past?
Yeah, it's the fact that they're going to be the most their ownership will tend to maximize total productivity. Not that they're the wealthiest. Because they don't have to be the wealthiest.
Wait, hold on. If I am like a destitute loser in society, and I'm bidding against Jeff Bezos for some mine, but I have I am Hank Reardon, right? I have all the knowledge of Hank Reardon. I can make Reardon metal using this mine. I'll be the most productive guy ever with this mine. But Jeff Bezos is able to outbid me. Is that an impossible scenario on your view?
No.
So that is possible. So then the person with the highest comparative advantage isn't inherently the person who will be the most productive with that particular thing.
No, but through the price system, this is the best way to distribute capital based upon comparative advantage. It's not going to be perfect because expectations aren't perfect. But if you don't have the necessary savings to outbid your opponent, then you don't have the necessary credibility to outbid them either, because you don't have a history of being productive, right? Your savings indicate money gives important signals. Your savings indicate your net productivity up until this point, basically, or it should indicate that. So if you don't have a history of being productive, you shouldn't be able to outbid somebody, even if you think you can outproduce them with the piece of property. But there's still also if you are credible, if you can present a credible business model that shows it can outproduce this guy, you can convince the capital market to lend you money.
Okay, so it sounds to me like there's this sort of fact out there that the person who, and I think this is going to have to rehash some of what we already talked about, but I think it's necessary. So the fact is put forward that the person with the highest comparative advantage with respects to some specific property, let's just for the sake of keeping things simple, say it's a specific plot of land, in this case, a specific acre. The person with the highest comparative advantage when utilizing that property is the person who is going to be the most productive when they're in possession of it. I think that that's sort of applied or agreeable to all three of us at face value. What Zulu's question was meant to draw attention to is, I'm not, I didn't get your refutation of it, so that's why I want to go back to it. Is he showed that the person who is who has the highest comparative advantage with respect to some specific property is by no means going to be the person for whom any rights enforcement agency is probable is going to likely get the most profits from. Now we're talking about, I want to make sure everyone remembers the framing here. We're talking about the assertion that there's some sort of alternative to the NAP that is, if you were a rights enforcement agency, you would be more incentivized to use this alternative business model because it's more profitable to you. But it doesn't seem to follow now, because the person who has the highest comparative advantage might be the most productive if they were in control of the property, but that doesn't mean that there's a missing inference here to show that they would be, for any reason at all, that that's an effective means of showing that they're the most profitable client for the rights enforcement agency in question.
Yeah, explain why. So first, this type of business model doesn't carry court costs, right? You don't waste time analyzing a historical chain because it's irrelevant to history of ownership is irrelevant. It's a sunk cost. It's sunk cost fallacy. It's irrelevant to.
Let me just jump in there.
Productivity.
Do you not have to spend any amount of time figuring out who has the highest comparative advantage?
That's demonstrated in their bids.
Okay.
What specifically are these bids? Like, because you're saying it's not, because the highest comparative advantage, which you're saying is linked to the most productive, that's not necessarily how much money they've got. So what specifically are the bids if not just money?
Well, the money being able to bid is your credibility, as I said before, right? So if you don't have the necessary money, you got to go to the capital markets and convince them of your business model.
But if I just stole the money, would you be fine with that?
Say that again.
If I just stole the money, would you be fine with that?
There's one thing that I think that shouldn't be stolen, but I don't see if it leads to
money,
better
that
outcome.
thing?
But under uncertainty, I think money and reputation is the only thing that cannot be stolen. I think they're the same thing inherently. That's why I think Bitcoin will die.
What if I just stole a bunch of other things and then sold it for money?
No, you're bypassing the bidding system.
Yeah. So what if I did that?
Because my reasoning is because under uncertainty, this is the best way to approach allocation via a comparative advantage. This open, transparent bidding system where everybody can see your bids, everyone can see your opportunity costs with your other bids on other property, and therefore rational people will naturally arbitrate by negotiating the transfer.
Right? I'm really confused here, and I want to see if maybe we can elucidate what's confusing me. We're appealing to comparative advantage, which is how productive someone's going to be when they possess the property. But the method you're using to determine this is how much actual wealth they can put towards like a bid. So there's this conflation that's happening between someone's comparative advantage and the amount of money that they happen to have in order to be able to make a bid of some given volume or quantity. And it seems to me that the only way to make this make sense, and Zulu, I want you to chime in here right after me, because if I'm going in the wrong direction here, I want to know it. But obviously, it seems to me that by definition, someone's comparative advantage has to be something other than their total amount of wealth that they're willing to use something. Otherwise, I guess the reductio here would be that there could be, is there no such thing as a wealthy person who wants to buy something who isn't effective at using it?
I said this system is the best way under uncertainty, right? And there are correcting mechanisms through profit and loss. So you have this system under uncertainty, ex ante, and then after the fact, we can correct via profit and loss. So the profit and loss corrects any mistakes in the from the bidding process.
So let's
Yeah,
get
if
down
you
to
wanna
brass
if you wanna
tacks
go to a
here.
thought experiment, we can do that.
What are how do we even know we're in profit and loss? Like, how do we know we're in the market if we don't have the NAP any longer? Right? We're getting rid of the NAP. Okay. The state is that currently very profitable?
Did you say the state?
Yeah, the state, the United States of America, is that a very profitable institution?
I don't know. That's something I have to consider. I haven't considered what would happen if the government rejected the non-aggression principle. It depends.
Crazy hypothetical, I know, for the government to reject the non-aggression principle.
You know, I don't, if they
Hopefully
adopt
you'll
my
go
system,
along with me for that
they might be
reduction.
profitable. If they adopt
So
my
I'm
system, they might create a business model that might
moreover,
might
what I'm
generate
trying to
profit.
get at is, what does it even identify under your worldview what it means to be profitable? Because for us to be genuinely profitable, it means you're acting on the market. You're not just stealing things from people.
That's
right.
No, so profitability should be linked to gains in total productivity, right? You shouldn't have a good money. So I envision
we should get rid of aggression then, because if profit should be linked
You're
to
assuming
gains in total production, we don't want processes which destroy production.
that statement is true, but you're jumping to the conclusion.
Yeah, so then we should have the NAP be enforced.
No, you're assuming that all aggression is unproductive, which is false.
Well, what's productive aggression?
Transferring property forcefully transferring property to the person with the highest comparative advantage if the current owner.
What is the person with the highest comparative advantage? They're the person who bids the most.
Not necessarily. Right? Not necessarily.
Okay, so who are they?
Under uncertainty, again, that's probably the best way to determine it. And if we're wrong, the system is corrected through profit and loss.
So the richest person who bids is always necessarily, like you're saying, that the rule that we should use is that, as far as best as we're able to tell, the best person for any property is the person who's willing to pay the most for it.
Yes, under uncertainty, that's willing and able to pay the most for it.
Right. So anything that you own at any point can be transferred to you from you to someone else if the person who wants to take possession of it is willing to expend more.
You also have to take into account transaction costs, but let's just assume for simplicity it's zero for now, because high transaction costs make small theft kind of unfeasible.
How does this relate to you as a person? Are you as a person able to be taken possession of in this manner?
Sure, even kids.
Sorry, I didn't catch that last part.
Even children.
Yeah, okay, so people. So I just want to make sure I'm not misrepresenting you here. Your position is that at any point somebody should be can justifiably be enslaved if somebody who has more money than them wishes it to be so.
If they can generate a profit from doing well, if no one sees a better alternative and is not willing to outbid them, sure. And if it ultimately totally maximizes total productivity, we'll find out after they take possession. Then the bidding process can happen again. But you see,
this bidding process, like, you're using flowery language here, but it's not an actual bidding process. It's not I'm putting up my house for sale and I'm going to do an auction.
No,
like, you're using very flowery language here. So what we're talking about is war, right? I go in and I take it by force.
What I'm trying to say is that the current owner of any property should not have the right to transfer the property. That should be given to the highest bidder, because
highest bidder. So yeah, no, it's not. It's again using flowery language here. The highest bidder is the one who is able to take the property from them, right? Because you want them to take the property from them. You don't want them to bid on the property. You don't want it to be a voluntary transaction. So stop using this language.
Sometimes it's voluntary. I mean, it's going to.
Sometimes it's voluntary, but it doesn't have to be, right?
It doesn't have to be, no.
Right. So the highest bidder then is the person who's able to take the thing.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So the person who's able to take the thing. So then you've got a latecomer ethic here, right? Just whoever is able to take the thing, that's going to be the best situation.
The first comer might be the highest bidder.
So they might be able to defend. So you see, by bidding, you mean war.
Right?
Like, stop with your like flowery language here. You're talking about war here.
No,
And you think that would be better if everybody's at war with everybody?
So if you assume everybody's rational, there's going to be no need for war. There's going to be a bargaining that.
So if everybody's rational, there wouldn't be any of your bidding.
So
right? None of your bidding. It wouldn't be me seizing property from anybody else, right?
the enforcement part, no. If everybody's perfectly,
I wouldn't have to seize property. So why are you against the NEP then? Because the NEP says that nobody should be seizing property from anybody else.
Like I'm just not going to answer if I'm just going to get interrupted.
Okay, then don't answer.
So
is that the end of the conversation then, gentlemen?
Well, no, I'd like to answer the question before you
So you do want to answer?
Yeah, I do want to answer. I don't want to get interrupted though.
The floor is yours, Evo Cap.
Repeat the question.
So you've got a latecomer ethic, right? Where I can just go in
No.
and seize property from anybody else. And if I seize the property, if I win at that, then I am the highest bidder on that property. Is that not correct?
Sure.
That is correct.
Sure, but you don't have to be the latecomer in that.
Okay, so how is this not total war of everybody against everybody?
Because people are rational. So if given enough information, both people will come to an agreement, right? They'll see each other's bids. I know you have a clear. So
bids,
let's
by that you mean war.
No, not necessarily. Again,
yes. Whoever can seize the property, that's the highest bidder.
You can answer my question for me. Why am I speaking?
Whoever can seize the property, that is the highest bidder. You already said that. This is why I interrupt you.
Yes, they can, but that doesn't mean that leads to
war. That is the highest bidder.
How many times do I have to repeat myself?
Okay, so somebody might go, oh, you've got a much greater force than me. I guess take it.
Yeah. So what would happen if you know it's inevitable that someone's going to take your land? Even if you go to war, you're going to lose. What are you going to do, Zulu?
Yeah, I guess I would have to give it up.
Damage, right? You're going to.
I guess I would have to give it up.
Yeah, but what?
And that is your ideal society where it's might makes right. That is your ideal society. You think production means might makes right. That is your idea of productivity.
No, I think right makes might.
Let me see if I can break this. Let me see if I can break this stalemate here, just because there's a little bit of confusion on somebody's part. So I think this is a good opportunity for everybody who's interested in this, and maybe not, because I know we've got some communist outsiders watching today. What is it that the market does? Well, first of all, what is the market? When we talk about the market, we're talking about individuals who are acting not subject to aggression, whether they're committing aggression towards others or they're receiving it themselves. So that's the market. And what does the market do? Well, all of what Austrian economics is going to talk about, and generally like what Ancap theory is talking about, is that what the market does is it's actually a selection process. Because the market operates on supply and demand and profit and loss, it's engaging in something that's really interesting to people, especially people who are interested in biology, because it's like natural selection, but it's different from natural selection because in the context of the market economy, we have rational selection. And that rational selection is happening, we understand, not only because people are doing the things they want to do, but there are specific requirements that have to be present for that rational selection to happen. So all of this economic study is showing what this beautiful emergent process is that performs this activity of making these selections, moving us towards a more prosperous and profitable state of affairs. And what is one of the key, perhaps the most fundamental aspect of the market economy, according to everyone who studies the market economy, and that is that the people are not the subject of aggression, that they possess ownership over themselves and over their property. So what you're essentially doing here is you're advocating for, I'm sorry to sort of narrate about your own position here. I'll give you the opportunity to respond. But as I understand your position as you've presented it here, you're advocating for something that is inspired by the efficiency, the results that come about through the natural selection process that's demonstrated by evolution. But in the market economy, that's what we have. And then you're advocating for, in order to facilitate this evolution, to make it even stronger, you want to destroy this foundational element that without it, the market economy no longer exists, let alone functions properly. So I think that the core that I would say, the most important thing to respond to this proposal is that you're doing the opposite of introducing evolution into this process. You're actually taking away the ability for the market to be rational. You're destroying the thing you're advocating for, which is this to have a natural selection process or a rational selection process. And I
The
think
non
that
the non-aggression principle is not only not a foundation of a market system or efficiency for that matter, but it's an inhibitor of it, right? You don't. So we already live in a system that prohibits us seeing what productive aggression looks like. It prevents this system. The government already prevents my system from happening. I can't start an enforcement firm that takes the highest bid, that enforces the will of the highest bidder, right? So you don't see the benefits of this property system.
I think
I'm curious. Hold on.
So
I'm curious about what
my system
specifically.
does is,
Hold on. I'm
So-
curious about what specifically you think these enforcement firms are for. If the highest bid refers to the person who's able to take the thing, what is even the purpose of an enforcement firm in the first place?
well, they don't know it, but their true purpose is to allocate property efficiently. Not
Okay, and that means going with the highest bid, i.e., the person who's able to take the thing, right?
sure.
Okay, so what is the? Why not just have a private army? What's the point of having a separate firm which does these things?
What do you mean, a separate firm?
Because you're talking about enforcement firms, i.e., a
Yeah.
firm whose job is to enforce what you consider to be the law, right? That's what the firm's job is. But the law is just might makes right. So why
Right.
not just? What's the point of these firms if it's just going to be warfare?
It's not warfare. That's
It is
just
warfare. That's literally
that's
what it
just
is.
a
That's your
contingency
process of
strategy.
bidding is warfare.
So if you want to walk
So
through,
I might surrender in the war. I might surrender, but it still is warfare.
No, I don't see that is so is protecting
Should have gone
property
Specsavers.
based upon the first comer voluntary transfer principle. That's also threat of violence.
Yes, we're not pacifists.
But the difference is my system pays for that enforcement. Yours doesn't
By
necessarily.
pays for it, you mean might makes right again, because your bids, your
No, right makes
payments, they're not actual payments. They are grabbing something from someone. That's what you mean by bid. I want to be very clear about that.
No, what I'm doing is properly allocating property, right? We're not letting people.
And you do that by snatching.
So what my system does is it doesn't let self-interested people get in the way of total productivity.
Right,
That's
because
what
it
the
takes it
system
from those selfish people, those
So-
selfish bastards.
so
That-
you can-
the
you can
community
see-
will take it from you. Thank you very
You can
much.
see the consequences
That's
of
your
unlocking
idea.
property, right?
It's total
When you have-
war.
So
when you
I have to
unlocked-
invoke the privilege
you
of being the host here, and we're going to have to move on to another caller soon because I've got some really good ones lined up. I want to end. So what we're going to do, Evo Cap, is I'm going to have a final statement of my own that I'd like to make, and then I'm going to give you the opportunity to make a final statement of your own. You'll have the last word. I always like to offer that if I'm able to. And what I want to say is just that there's this claim, and I think this is a perfect place for us to wrap it up on, that the NAP inhibits the market. Well, the foundational thing you're going to learn if you read something like Man, Economy, and State, like what is so important about conflict avoidance and non-aggression and stuff like that, the possibility of conflict, which is what's happening when somebody other than the first comer is permitted to, under some system, make use of something, is we suffer all these enormous problems. And what do those problems look like specifically? Well, you lose the capability of knowing if your investments are ever going to pay off. Everything becomes super high time preference because nothing that you are doing can ever be shown reliably, and actually it can be shown to in the opposite direction, is likely to be taken away from you. So we are people. We're actors who exist in a context, in an environment full of means, all these scarce things that we can make use of. And it's our connection with those things that allows us to form capital and improve our prosperity. It's an understanding of the mutual benefit of voluntary transactions that lets us not only improve our own well-being, but the well-being of others. But if we lose this idea of the first comer principle and non-aggression, what happens is we actually separate ourselves from the means in our environment that are the critical ingredient for our own prosperity. That means that if you see something, you can't think to yourself, well, I can use that in some way. If I save this, if I do, everything is I have to consume this right away, because any option other than immediate consumption is going to result in my loss. I am never going to be incentivized. In fact, the maximum amount that I could possibly be incentivized otherwise against saving, against production. It's just consume, consume, and consume. And this is the logical implication that comes out of the fact that everyone is now separated from their ability to make their lives better, the lives of other people better. Those means are no longer something that they can rely on having access to, no matter if it's in their house, no matter if it is their house, no matter if it's their own body. They have lost the ability to look into the future and say, I can improve my well being by utilizing this in some other way besides immediate consumption. So that's my last word on the topic. And I'll give you a minute or two if you'd like to evo cap, and then we'll move on to the next caller.
Yeah, what Ancaps fail to realize is that there's something called over incentivization, right? You don't want to over incentivize ownership by granting them inefficient monopolistic privileges of right to transfer the property, right? You can't let people's self-interest get in the way of everybody else's self-interest, and society and the market won't allow them to do that. And if you have any doubt, like if you have any doubt of the inefficiencies of the lock-in property system, you can look at our system today, which is pretty much based on that. You can see empty storefronts, rotting malls, right? People charging monopolistic prices to transfer their property, right? All of these inefficiencies, right? All of these things where property could be already used by somebody else. It's just that because you give them that privilege, they tend to inhibit total productivity for the sake of their own self-interest.
Awesome. Well, I hope you're satisfied that we had an interesting conversation and that you got the opportunity to have the last word. I'm going to say thanks so much for reaching out. It's always an interesting and enjoyable time. I hope that you'll reach out to us again. You're always welcome. And he's gone. He is gone. My word. Okay. That was great.
He gets out there fast, doesn't he?
He gets in here fast too. I didn't even see him coming this time. All right, so that's the end of that call. We're moving on to call number 7, which is, from my perception, call number 7 is coming from somebody who's a little bit new to Ancap, maybe, and they've got some basic questions, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to go over some of those things. So you are on the line now. I'm trying to remember what your Discord name was. I think it was Diamonds. So Diamonds, you had some questions for us. The floor is yours.
I sure do. I'm a big fan of the show, and a huge fan of Liquid Zulu, and I believe in anarcho-capitalism, but I just had a quick question.
Sure, please, let's hear it.
So I know business have like an incentive to provide police and roads and everything like that, but what happens if you make like 50K a year or less, and then you get cancer or something? Like why would someone have the incentive to make sure that that person gets help?
So, I mean, if it's somebody who I like, then I'm going to want them to get help, right? And more fundamentally, things like, medical treatments are going to be way, way, way cheaper under anarcho-capitalism, because you've got capitalism. So things are going to be, you're going to have the most efficient allocation of resources. So you can have swimming pools full of insulin, things like that. Like, the reason why drugs are super expensive in the US is because of patent laws. Like, that's not part of our system.
Okay. Right, but what if prices don't go down? Then what?
I wouldn't know.
What we're essentially saying should really be understood as that. Look, I want to give you the simple answer, which is we're asserting that the prices will go down, basically necessarily. And here's the caveat to that: it's possible. Like, so let's say we get anarcho-capitalism, and now the market is driving the prices down, and then a comet smokes the earth, and we lose all of our capital, and almost everyone's dead. Well, naturally, the prices are going to be kind of poor at that point. The absolute prices aren't something that we can guess. We can't say, well, we know for sure that the literal dollar value is going to go down. We know that in the market, it is necessarily the case that the prices will be as cheap as they possibly could be. So unless you assume something like a nuclear war, or maybe just a war in a more general sense, or a natural disaster, every expectation should be towards the significant lowering of the prices.
I All right, fair enough. Right, but another question about mutual aid. As it stands today, the bottom 50% of Americans pay 3% of taxes, and I think the top 5% of the highest incomers, they pay like 60%. So how do you provide? So how do you provide things like food or medical insurance, stuff like that, to the poor or low income?
Well, make sure that you sort of separate your expectations from this question. It's sort of, and I don't want to make it sound like I know for a fact this is what you mean, but the language you're using sort of invites it. We are not proposing a specific institution. Rather, we're sharing the knowledge, the understanding of how the market functions, that this is what the market does. The market is a state of affairs which will bring about the lowest possible prices ceteris paribus, meaning all other things held equal. So if your concern is how do we make sure people have access to food, the answer to that, what we're advocating for here is not, well, here's a specific institution that we think would do a good job of this. We're saying being in a free market is the circumstance which necessarily brings about the lowest conceivable prices of all the goods. Does that, what do you think, Zulu? I saw you muted your microphone there. You think that that's a good answer?
Yeah, so I mean, like the fundamental point is it's not the job of the law to tell you to make sure that nobody goes hungry. That's not the job of the law, right? People might go hungry, so what? Doesn't matter, right? This is not a particular problem at all. Now, what would it require for you to actually go hungry under total capitalism? You'd have to be a real bastard that nobody likes, nobody wants to help, nobody cares for. That's what it would require. And fundamentally, yeah, those people should just go out into nature and deal with their problems on their own. If they've alienated literally everybody in society, that's not my problem. The question shouldn't be, what should we do about the poor? It's what should the poor do to make themselves better for society? What should they do to make it such that they're able to earn an income? What should they do in order to be worthy of support? That's what the question should be.
That's fair.
I think it's worth noting as well that if what we're saying about the market is accurate, and every indication seems to be that it is, the free market's the situation in which a hypothetical poor person would have to do the least in order to get out of poverty, because the necessary minimization of prices means that there's going to be, you can think of it just really quickly in terms of there's going to be more disposable income, there's going to be more job opportunities, all the goods and services are going to be enormously cheaper. So if you're a poor person right now, I think an experience a lot of people can give a testimony to is that you're out in the world, you get a job, which is hard to do in the first place, and then even if it's minimum wage or above minimum wage, it's nearly impossible. It seems, it feels like it's so difficult to just afford the bare minimum of rent. Actually, I have some friends right now who are working their butts off. They work at the same place that I do, and this, I work in industry at the moment, so it's not light work, and they don't have a place to live. They got to actually, they're currently pooling their resources to try and attempt to afford something on the lower end of what's available in our area. And I think that that's exactly the opposite of what the market does. The market would make it so that if there was such a hypothetical person who nobody wanted to help, they would have the most opportunities to earn an income. They would need to make the fewest sacrifices in terms of opportunity cost through that income earning process to get out of poverty. And let me just give you, I specifically mean like get access to food, get access to housing, stuff like that.
Okay, maybe I should ask a different question. Probably not, huh?
If you think you got a quick one, we'd be happy to go through with you.
All right. So another question about the ethics or like the system of it. So on the beginning of the Ethics of Liberty, Hans Hermann Hoppe like wrote this little introduction or something. And he said, yes, Murray Rothbard does agree that we should abandon kids and the parents should not go to jail for abandoning their kids. like doesn't kind of say something about the ethical system of anarcho-capitalism? Doesn't it like kind of show a flaw? Like
Not
you're allowed
really.
to
So
abandon your kids because you feel like it, and that's it.
so you might not agree with Rothbard's stance on children, but the question is, what is the alternative? Should parents be soul bound to their children forever by under the threat of law? No, you don't want those sorts of parents for children. You don't want those people who hate their kids. You don't want them, because that's how you get sudden infant death syndrome. Or that's how you get that it's the mother murders the child. That's how that happens. You don't want those sorts of parents taking care of children. You want the best parents taking care of the children. Specifically, if somebody doesn't want to be a parent, they should be allowed to sell the child under some adoption system to somebody who's going to be way better, who actually wants children. That's way better. Now, I disagree with Rothbard specifically on the neglect point, because I think that's a form of forestalling. But that in itself, like, that isn't part of libertarian theory. Like, it's not baked into the non-aggression principle that neglect is okay. That's just Rothbard's application of the NEP, which I think he was wrong about.
I want to sort of mirror this as well with a little bit of an anecdotal story. I recently watched, there's these true crime YouTube channels. I think probably everyone here has seen them, like Explore With Us and stuff like that. I saw one recently about this couple. They were full-time streamers. I don't think they were making any money off of it. Tremendous amount of drug addiction between the two of them. And they basically left their infant to starve to death in its crib, which is tremendous, horrific, abhorrent state of affairs. But that's what the story is about. This police body cam put it. Now, what we're advocating for, obviously, like, everyone's in agreement that this is a terrible situation. Well, I wanted to say even EvoCap might agree, but I don't know. Maybe he thinks that's natural selection. I'm not sure. But like, the thing is, we would say, Zula and I'd be like, okay, let them sell that. Let it be not only like allowed to sell the child, but make it facilitate that it's easy by getting rid of all the barriers. So what's going to happen there? Let's say that these parents are meth addicted. Well, they obviously, if you have an addiction to a substance like that, that's obviously a very powerful, compelling incentive to get more of it. So you got this valuable, I mean, what's more valuable than a human being? This valuable thing that you could sell. They have every incentive to go and just get rid of that child as fast as possible, because they're going to get meth. And I mean, like, we're not stopping them. There's nothing we can do to stop them from getting meth. But what we could do is, this is a very powerful way to get that child out of there. Because instead of promoting an institution that has to fight against parents, and it has to, it has to be omniscient, it has to spend huge amounts of resources, it has to get into combat with people, why not just step back and allow there to be a natural incentive for the parents to solve the problem on their own? And so that's ethical from our point of view. That's a solution to this horrendous problem. Now, I want to preempt a concern that a lot of people have, and perhaps, Diamond, this isn't a problem that you would have, but I want to say this. Some people respond to this, well, what if the person just, like, what if there's a guy going around buying children because he wants to enslave them and put them into the coal mines, or he eats the children?
That's kind of dumb. I don't know about that one.
Well, I'm taking this opportunity to go there because it is something I hear often. And the reason I just want to say about that, the children remain protected by the NAP. If we're talking about, like if the hypothetical is the anarcho-capitalist state of affairs, the children are still protected by the NAP, which means that there would be every motive in the world for people, unless you assume that we're all psychopaths. It's completely justified, and there's an incentive to find that this is happening and stop it from happening with extreme prejudice. There's a meme that makes the rounds. I'm going to misquote it slightly just to keep us from getting removed from YouTube, but the meme says, anarcho-capitalists, promote X type of exploitation of children. And the anarcho-capitalist responds that the government is the only thing stopping me from hunting down people who exploit children in this way. I think that's a little bit of a comedic take on it, but it really does a good job of explaining how different these approaches are to solving the problem are.
Oh. Well. Oh shoot, my mind went blank. All right, I guess that's fair. I think I kind of ran out of stuff to say, but yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable.
Sweet. I'm really glad we had the opportunity to answer some of your questions today. I saw you were posting in the Discord, and I was like, "This is great. I really hope we could get you in here." We did. So thanks so much for joining. And you mentioned you're a fan of the show and Zulu, so thanks so much for that too. I'm going to give you the opportunity if you want to just have like a quick, like 10, 20-second last word, and we'll move on to the next caller.
Well, I was just thinking that, with science and stuff, you don't want to build like a 2-story house. You have to have like a theory and stuff. So I was thinking, same way you need a theory to like build a car, build a house, you need to have a correct internal logic with a political ideology. So I thought maybe, you could abandon kids. Like, what does that say about the ideology? Maybe we need a new system of like how to deal with politics, the city of affairs.
That's fair. I think that's a reasonable final word. So thanks so much again for calling in. It was a pleasure to speak with you. And we're going to move on to our next caller. Have a good rest of the night.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to just clear our chat here. The next caller it appears to be our final caller. So we're going to bring them up now. That's Shrek Eyes. You're on the air. We can hear you. And go ahead and just share your question with us, and we'll jump right into it.
Hello. Okay, so is money property?
Could be, could not be.
In what sense could it be, and in what sense could it not be?
So it could be money. It could be property if gold is money, for instance, if it's some commodity like that. It could not be property if it's something like Bitcoin, because I don't think Bitcoin can be property.
What if it's something like $1?
You can own a dollar bill, certainly.
Can you own $1 though?
The dollar doesn't actually refer to anything. That's the problem with fiat money. Like, it's a receipt with no referent. You can own the bill. You can definitely own the bill, but you can't own the referent because there is no referent any longer.
What if the money is like some sort of IOU to gold? IOU.
So I'm not sure what it means to own an IOU. IOU means I owe some particular person some particular property. I don't know that the IOU is itself property.
Yeah. So if money is supposed to be the medium of exchange, right? So then you can't own. And if the medium of exchange is some sort of IOU to some property, then can money not be owned, right? You agree?
So money is just, so there is a distinction between money and money certificates. So under, for instance, a gold standard, I would have a note for, £5 sterling. That means £5 of sterling silver in some vault, right? That is, the note itself is not the money. That's just a certificate saying that I own this money in the vault. That's all it is. That's what a bank note is. It's a note that you own that money. So with something like Bitcoin, there isn't this same relationship going on there, of course.
Okay, but an IOU can be conditional, right? You can have an IOU which says in which conditions you can withdraw it, right?
So that would be a contract, not the same as a banknote. A banknote is just, this is my money. I can come and retrieve it.
Well, is it though? Most an IOU is a type of contract.
Not really, because what is being transferred title to?
Oh, yeah, well, contracts are about title transfers. Yeah.
Right. I don't think there is a title transfer in the case of having a certificate showing that this is my car in this garage. Right. I take a ticket out showing that this is my car. Right. Versus I take a ticket out showing that this is my money in the vault. Like, I don't think there's a transfer of title to property. I don't think the bank owns the money that's in there. They're just keeping it for somebody else. And this ticket, this money certificate, is proof that you own that money in the vault. That's all it is.
Okay, so theoretically, if I were to have a vault of gold somewhere and I were to emit IOUs, which are conditional, I mean they're contracts, right? If you can take this paper, you can take this receipt, come over here and withdraw it for gold under if I want to, under some circumstance, right? Could
If you own the gold, yes, you could have like some sort of mechanism like that.
yeah, I own the gold, right? The bank, not the
Yeah.
not the person with the receipt.
Yeah. You could set that up, but that's not a bank.
Okay, it's not a bank. It's a demand deposit institution. Okay,
Sure.
so I give out these titles, right? These IOUs, conditional IOUs, which are contracts, and these people start, giving you start using the IOU itself as a medium of exchange. Yeah.
Okay.
So what are these people actually trading? Are they trading the IOUs or the gold in my vault?
Mostly they'll be trading the IOUs there.
Well, when I pay someone to give me, I don't know, a shoe, I'm actually giving them an IOU in this.
No, you're not.
In this,
Not
in this
currently.
scenario, you are.
In this scenario, sure.
Okay, yeah, in this scenario. So is there a title transfer?
It would be over the specific certificate, yes.
Civic certificate?
Yeah, the specific certificate. You could trade
Okay.
that to somebody else because that is an actual like physical piece of paper.
Yeah. And if the IOU itself is conditional, that is, you don't actually own the gold inside the vault. You only have a claim on it, which is conditional upon some condition. And then people aren't trading the gold itself, right? They're not.
Okay.
So how is fractional reserve banking fraud?
Because that's not what a bank is. A bank means I'm storing my money in some institution, and I can come into that institution to get my money back at any point. That's what a bank is. That's what a bank means. Ask 1,000 people on the street whether they own the money in their bank account, and 1,000 of them will say yes, unless you run into a radical free banker along the way. Every other person is going to say yes, I own that money. That's how you know fraud's going on.
Well, that's because people think money is in people, when they think in money, they're not thinking in some gold in a bank somewhere. They're thinking in a dollar bill, right? Or not even a dollar bill, just some number on their phone.
They're thinking in money. They think they own the money in their bank account.
Yeah, but in today's world, when we say money, we just mean like a claim in the bank. We don't
But hold
actually
on.
mean that gold.
Is that what people generally think?
Well, yeah, because money.
So
when was the last time money actually
Do you
represented
think that
gold?
if you were to ask 1,000 people on the street, do you own the money in your bank vault? Like, do you own the money? If you go to your bank account, if you go to that ATM over there and it shows the amount of money in your bank account, do you think you own that money? Do you think majority of them even would say that, no, the bank owns that money?
Well, you're like doing
Is that your claim?
you're like doing what social contract people do. Like, oh yeah, do you own your house? Like, obviously you own your house, but it's actually
would you be
pretty
willing
much
to answer the
occupied by the
question?
state. Sorry, what?
Would you be willing to answer his question?
What was his question again?
So if you were to ask 1,000 people on the street whether they own the money in their bank account, what do you think that the majority answer would be?
Well, they'd say no. Yes, they do own the money in the bank. But if you explain to them what ownership under libertarian law means, they would say no. They wouldn't say yes.
The majority of people, if I were to explain to them that ownership means that they have the right to control that money, that they would say, no, I don't have the right to control that money. You think the majority would say that?
Well, I mean, sure, if you dumb down libertarianism like that, yeah, they would.
That's not dumbing down. That's just what it means.
Well, if you also explain how a fucking bank works, then no, they wouldn't say yes.
So let's just try to. I think it'll be beneficial for us to stick to something a little bit more concrete than speculating about what people believe. And there's a little bit of that's sort of built into the question, but we're going to try to avoid it for as great of amount of time as possible. So there's a couple of concepts I want to introduce really quickly. Just I think they'll be facilitating. There are two types of contracts generally performed at a bank, historically speaking. One of those is a demand deposit, which is not necessarily performed with exclusively money. You can do it with paintings. You can do it with all kinds of things. And the purpose of a demand deposit is, and I'm oversimplifying, Zulu can give this in a more rigorous contractual form. But the basic premise of a demand deposit is I'm giving you this, you're holding it for me. It continues to be mine the entire time it's yours. And sorry, it continues to be mine the entire time that it's in your possession under your care. And because it's mine, I can come retrieve it at any time that I wish. And I'm gonna pay you for watching over my things. Now, alternatively, there's another type of thing called a time deposit. And a time deposit is a different type of arrangement altogether. In a time deposit, you are saying, I'm giving you ownership of this. And this, in this case, it's essentially always money. It's conceivable that you could have one that's not money, but I think we'll just keep it simple for now. So in a time deposit, you're saying, here is my money. I'm giving you ownership of it. And this is part of a contract. The contract is I'm giving you one coin and it's yours now. And in return, the aleatory conditions, I think Zulu would call it, is in a year's time, I want 2 coins back. Now those are different types of contracts. So what the criticism of fractional reserve banking is that when you deposit money into the bank, they give you the impression that it's a demand deposit because you can go into your computer and you can be like, oh, how much money do I have? It's here, and I can just access it whenever I want. But the fact is that that money's actually a time deposit in a sense because it's been distributed. It's been spent, it's been invested, it's not in the possession of the bank any longer. And the purpose of the fractional reserve is so that there's some amount of circulation of withdrawals and deposits. And as long as the reserve is sufficient to cover that volume, then the what we are calling a deception is never discovered. But the fact that people are under the impression that they're engaged in a demand deposit, and the fact that they think that is indicated by the fact that they say that they own the money in the bank. That doesn't make sense unless you're in a demand deposit. But the way that the money's being used is unambiguously a time deposit. It's been spent and invested.
And
These two things can't be reconciled.
On that,
I want to just quickly add on to this. I've got some banknotes here, and I just pulled them out of my pocket. And it says, Bank of Scotland PLC promises to pay the bearer on demand £20 sterling at its registered office, Edinburgh. That is written on my banknote right here. So they are saying that this is a demand deposit, that I own £20 sterling. Guess where that comes from? It means 20 pounds of silver, sterling silver, in their vault, that they will give that back to me at demand in their office in Edinburgh. And guess what would happen if I went there and demanded the silver? They would say, fuck off. Right? That's the fraud going on here.
Nobody actually believes you can. Anyways, that's not the point.
When you have to, because nobody believes it now.
Yeah, that was fraudulent. That was totally fraudulent. You used to.
This is all fraud.
Okay, well, it was.
I'm glad you agree. Now, fractional reserve banking is fraud. I'm glad you agree.
The gold standard or silver standard is way prior to. It's way its removal was way after the start of fractional reserve banking.
So anyways, in other words, you're saying that Zulu has indicated a legitimate case of fraud, but the fraud that he's showing, that he's pointing to there, is a different fraud case than the case we're discussing about fractional reserve bank. This is some different type of fraud.
Yeah, it's a different type. Yeah. Well, when you see money in your bank, do you actually how do you get money in your bank?
You put
do you
money
actually deposit a bill in there? Or
yep, I do every week.
Okay, but
I often deposit cash.
Okay, so when you have money in your bank, do you own the money, or what is money? What is this money thing we're speaking of?
Yeah, so this is essentially, I think that where you're going with this is that money is fungible. So that does somewhat complicate the issue, but it doesn't significantly complicate the issue. So if I have something that's fungible, and what this means in a praxeological sense, and also I think just in a general sense, is that it doesn't matter to me whether or not I get the specific coin that I put in. Let's just talk about silver for the sake of keeping things simple. It doesn't matter to me as the actor if I get the same one. I consider 2 different coins of silver interchangeable. Now, you could easily escape this through a appeal to subjectivity, because if lots of people have lucky coins, I mean, No Country for Old Men, right? Lucky Quarter. I've been given coins. People who know that I'm interested in the stuff that we're talking about now give me silver as a gift all the time. And unfortunately for me, they tend to give me collectible silver. So I get like the anniversary of Vimy Ridge collectible silver coin or whatever. And now that's not interchangeable to me with other coins. But let's just say it wasn't even a commemorative coin. Let's say it was a silver coin that is in every sense physically indistinguishable from any other silver coin. Yet the fact that it was given to me by my father means that I don't see it the same as the other coins. Subjectively, it's no longer fungible. This fungibility is an entirely subjective concern. So because coins are fungible, then you're not transferring ownership in the sense that I'm in the traditional sense with it like a demand deposit. I'm giving you this specific coin. I want this specific coin back. There's a sort of fungibility in that it can be any of the coins that are in storage, but that doesn't change the fact that everything, all of the specific functional elements of what we're talking about remain the same. So if you go to the bank and they give you a different coin, that is the coin that you own. But if you go there and you're in a contractual agreement with them, a demand deposit to give you any of the coins that are fungible, and they can produce none, then that was fraud, and that doesn't change any of the functional components here.
So what I was going to get on is that money in your bank account isn't actually being redistributed. It's not really. Now, when you deposit a dollar bill, yeah, that's being redistributed, but not money in your bank. No, that's never being redistributed. What does it mean to redistribute a bank deposit? It's not. It just isn't. Money isn't. Money is a contractual obligation, but it's not a control on what, right? On what conditions? You can't just claim it's fraudulent without actually going into specifics.
Oh, I think we were pretty specific. Zulu, do you think we were pretty specific?
Yeah, I think we were crystal there. We were crystal in the sense that what is being redistributed is the actual referent of the money. The sterling silver that I've got the receipts for in my pocket, that is redistributed all around the place. I can't go back and claim that. There are multiple property titles to that sterling silver initially, and now there actually isn't any sterling silver.
Zulu, do you also believe like insurance is fraudulent?
No.
Like insurance?
I don't believe that's fraudulent, no.
Well, it's doing the same thing a bank does, really. You have all these conditional claims. Yeah, it is. You have all these conditional claims on a theoretical damage that can happen to your property, for example. Mm-hmm. But it never actually happens. So is there an actual contradiction in this situation?
Because insurance isn't claiming you own the money in the insurance company's vault. That has never been the claim. Whereas these fucking banknotes, again, I can bring out the fucking banknotes for you. They say the Bank of Scotland PLC promises to pay the bearer on demand £20 sterling at its registered office, Edinburgh. It says that on my fucking banknotes, man. It says that. It says that to me, and it's a lie. No insurance company I've ever given money to has ever said that I'm owning money in their vaults. No insurance company has ever said that.
Well, again, you did this false thing. Do you actually believe like the state when they say you own something?
I'm sorry.
Are these guys?
How do you think this came about? The state came in and took over these banks. They gave shelter to these banks. That's how it came about. This used to be the case. It used to be the case that I could go out to the bank and collect my money. It used to be the case. And it got destroyed by fraud. Fraud backed by the state. That's how it happened. Like, are you just ignorant of this history?
I'm gonna give the point to Zulu on that one due to the lack of a answer.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I was mute. I didn't know I was muted.
No worries, go for it.
So when you don't actually believe the state when they say you own a house or this guy owns this specific property, do you? No, right?
Well, it can
So why
be
would you feel?
Let me just
Okay,
clarify that. I don't believe that the state is going to respect that ownership. And I don't look to the state to determine who owns what, because we have a totally comprehensive theory of ownership in the first place. So we don't look to the state to find out who it is that owns something. And it doesn't change anything about our conception of ownership if we were to not believe that the state's going to respect ownership.
So, in other words, it's possible for the state to identify some legitimate ownership. It's possible for them to do that, but that doesn't determine that it is ownership. Like in this case, they have identified that I own £20 sterling that they have taken from me. They have identified that.
1 second. He seems to be. I'm going to pull him back up again. He might have been having a little audio video problem there. You back on with us?
I am okay. I'm walking outside right now, and it's raining now, so but I can continue.
Absolutely. You're welcome to. I don't want you to feel pressure if you're getting rained on, but you're welcome to continue if that's what you'd like to do. Did you catch Zulu's most recent response to you?
No, I didn't.
Zulu, would you like to repeat yourself?
Sure. So it isn't the case that the state is determining that's the fountainhead of ownership, that the state says I own £20 of silver. That's not what determines that. But it doesn't mean that the state can't recognize actual legitimate ownership claims, like that I own £20 of silver with this note. They indeed can recognize that, just as they could recognize that, you own your house. The state could recognize that fact, even if that isn't where it comes from.
Well, you just don't own the £25 sterling. Is what I'm trying to say. In a proper bank, you're like, this is like me pointing to a state title and saying, "Oh yeah, I own this property here. I own this property under libertarian theory."
That's not the same thing. Zulu is not asserting that he has derived his ownership from the wording on the banknote. He's derived his ownership elsewhere. He's saying the fact that their actions are contradicting their words is where the fraud is. Am I being accurate there, Zulu?
Yeah, this note lies to me. It says that I own £20 of silver in their vaults in Edinburgh. That's what this note says, and it's a lie. This note is lying to me.
So you build this entire libertarian theory, and then you say, "Oh well, they're not using own in the same way I use it."
No, that's not what we said.
Yeah, that is, because actually you have a claim to this £25 sterling. You have a claim to it, a conditional claim to it.
By deception.
No, I'm really sorry. I think perhaps there was some confusion there. You issued some accusations about our position that I don't think are I don't think that they correspond to what we're saying at all.
Well, no, so you actually have a claim to the £25 sterling. You don't actually own it. When you have a conditional claim to it.
I could go to the bank in Edinburgh and collect £20 of silver.
Yeah, you can, because it's very rare that you can, but it's conditional. It's totally conditional.
Do you think that I could buy £20 of silver with £20 notes? Is that your claim?
Yeah, you can buy it. Yeah.
You really think that I can afford £20 of silver with just a £20 note at the bank? You think they would give me £20 of silver for this? Is that your?
No, you can't, right? But
right, because they don't actually have
that. Now. That's pretty much symbolic. That's symbolic.
They're lying.
It's a symbolic expression. It's not actually. They aren't. Nobody actually believes you can collect £25 sterling. Back to your example, nobody believes that.
Everybody knows that they.
So again, I think you're totally missing our point, and I want to give you the opportunity to comprehend our point. So whether or not people believe this, I think like this sort of empirical appeal to like what a certain number of the population believes is totally irrelevant to what we're talking about. It's of no interest to me, and I'm sure that it's not of any interest to Zulu either. We're saying that a person is engaged in fraud when they promise something that they have no intention of delivering. And we're demonstrating that that's taking place. We're not deriving our concept of ownership from this process of this exchange. And we're not using a different, you said earlier, we were using the word own differently. We're not using a different like multiple competing definitions of the concept of ownership. We're saying it is fraudulent to promise something that you have no intention, or knowing that you are aware, at the very least, you have no capacity to fulfill. We're demonstrating that that's taking place.
Well, okay. To re-clarify on what I actually mean, in no way does fractional reserve banking in no way is fractional reserve banking fraudulent under the right circumstance. So in this, obviously the state is fraudulent, and the bank is pretty much part of the state at this point. It's not really a private institution these days.
Let me hit you with a hypothetical. It's a two-parter, really quickly. Okay, so if I go to you or you go to me, I don't care which, and I say, okay, here I'll hold your dollar for you. But I know, even though I'm going to hold your dollar for it, that at any time that you come to redeem it, there's only a 10% chance that I'm going to be able to give you the dollar. But unless it ever actually takes place that I can't give you the dollar back, then there's no fraud. And I'm just saying that I'm understanding you correctly. That's what you're saying about the banking system.
Wait, you have a deposit with a 10% chance of. Could you explain again?
It's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah. So basically, here I'm gonna try to maybe explain it a different way. I don't want us to get stuck in the weeds on the hypothetical, where maybe the composition of the hypothetical is an error on my part, not clear. If you go to the bank, right, and you make a deposit. Now we agreed earlier that the fractional reserve is meant to cover some sort of what does Keynes call it? It's like the volume of circulation or the velocity of money, right? Like, so there's some sort of quantity of circulation, and the fractional reserve has to cover that. Okay. So what if the bank makes a mistake and they have just a little tiny bit too few money available? So you go in and you make your first deposit. You say, I'm giving you $100, and then immediately get a phone call, and it's like, oh, there's a really great business opportunity. It costs $100. You say, oh, shoot, I changed my mind. I want my $100 back. And they say, sorry, it's gone. The $100 is gone. Earlier, you said that this wouldn't. There's no redistribution happening. You said, so they didn't redistribute my money. So there's no fraud here, and the money didn't go anywhere. Like, that's what maybe I'm trying to understand.
Well, it depends on the contract that the bank operates in.
If the bank told me that I would be able to access my money,
under what conditions?
What do you mean under what conditions? What conditions are the banks currently telling us that limit our access to the money?
Well, for one, there's insurance on your deposits most of the time. I don't know where you are, but there is an insurance on your deposit, for starters. So it's not like this money is a contract, right? Well, that's the problem here. When you see $2,000 in your bank account, you don't actually have $2,000 physically. You have a contract. Now
What would it mean to have $2,000 physically?
$2,000 of. Wait, do you want me to actually answer, like in the real world?
Yeah. What does $2,000 refer to?
It refers to $2,000 of a claim on a deposit of the Central Bank of America. In the case of the United States.
What? What did you deposit?
Deposit of nothing. I mean, you deposit into the
$2,000 versus nothing.
Sorry, what?
So $2,000 first nothing. It's not $2,000 of anything.
It refers to a contractual claim by the commercial bank to give you a $2,000 banknote.
$2,000 of what?
It's of nothing. It's of itself.
Nothing. So
it's an IOU to itself.
Any money. Yeah. So I could turn off the bank and they just go, "Nah, we don't want to give you any money."
Yeah, correct. Money isn't scarce. Isn't scarce at all.
So it's a contract. Say no, we're not giving you any money. We just decided you're not going to have any money any longer. You think that would be perfectly legitimate?
Presumably, your deposit has a contract, right? A policy.
Contract referring to what? Because contracts are contracts about property.
Referring to
what property?
So, a property about an actual paper note, right?
No.
By the
what is the
central
specific
bank.
Property?
Which one? There's like two claims we're speaking about here.
So, you're saying that that you have a deposit, that it refers to some property, some actual property right going on here. You can claim some actual
A deposit isn't a property right.
You can claim some property. You might not get it, but you can claim it at the time if they have it. But what
Yeah.
is the specific property that you can claim? And now you're saying nothing. So it's all just fiat.
No. I'm not saying nothing. No.
You did say nothing. You literally did say that.
Well, the claim on the commercial bank is different to the claim on the central bank.
So what is the claim on the what am I claiming from the central bank?
Itself. You're claiming
I'm claiming the
have
entire central bank. When I go to the central bank and ask for my $20, I'm claiming
well, you can't have a
central
deposit
bank.
at the central bank. You can't have that. You're not allowed to.
What am I claiming
bro.
from the central bank?
You're claiming you're claiming itself. When you have a deposit in the
So I
central
am
bank.
claiming the central bank.
No, you're claiming when you have a $10 claim, which means a $10 deposit in the central bank. You can't you withdraw it, you're getting $10. That's what it is.
Of what?
$10 of itself. I just said so. A dollar itself is a claim on the central bank. Yeah, exactly.
What does that mean?
It's how dollars are like
It's
pieces of paper. No, it's not really, because you have a dollar, right? You have a bunch of symbols on it, which says it's like individual. The symbols on the dollar.
So I'm claiming the symbols on the dollar.
No, you're not. You're just claiming okay, you're using two words of claim here. I can have a claim on a property, right? And I can have property. My property. Let's say I have $10 like in my hand right now. I have this doesn't matter. $10. $10 is $10.
It's $10 or nothing. What about in the UK? It says I have 20 pounds of silver.
Nobody thinks a dollar is like a unit of measurement. Nobody thinks that.
So I want to jump in here to say, do you
That's
understand?
what it initially was.
Do you understand
initially, but nobody says that anymore. Nobody believes that.
Because they defrauded everyone.
The functional, what's functional in the proposition is...
But we're talking about fractional reserve banking, not about fiat.
Hold on. What's functionally relevant in a proposition, the kinds of propositions we're talking about, is the parity between the promise and the delivery, right? So you agreed with me earlier that it wasn't relevant, but you've invoked it again. Nobody believes this. We agreed that that's not relevant, and we're telling you now more assertively that it isn't relevant. It doesn't matter that who believes
your claim, your fraudulent claim, refers to the actual dollar.
Hold on now. I'm gonna have to. Please don't make me. You have to. So we're saying a promise is not being fulfilled. That's the functional thing. To say, well, nobody believes the promise. Well, we're telling you that we do, right? But it doesn't even matter, right? If you make a promise to nobody in particular, if you just say it, you whisper it where nobody hears it, that's not making a promise. We're talking about something specific here. We're talking about an arrangement. So if we could just avoid repeating the phrase "nobody believes that," because we already agreed it's irrelevant, and we could deal with.
There's two different claims of fraudulence. That fractional reserve banking is fraudulent, and that fiat is fraudulent. So
let's stick to fractional reserve banking then, because that's what we were.
Yeah, I admit a dollar is a unit of measurement of weight of gold or silver or whatever it was. Let's forget about that. That's a different type of fraudulence.
Sure.
Fractional reserve banking.
Zulu, do you mind if I jump in here? I don't want to derail you.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, let's just do this, Shrek guys. I want to see if where we have the breakdown here, right? So, if you do a demand deposit, right, and I'm not asserting that a demand deposit is valid. I'm deriving it from the kinds of interactions we can have, the kind of arrangements we can reach. Okay, so it's possible for something to be in your possession that you don't own. You agree with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you leave something with somebody under an arrangement, so say I'm going to leave this for you're going to take care of this for me. You're the steward of it. It's for safekeeping, whatever, and I'm going to pay you over time for performing this service. I need you to watch over my stuff for me. Okay, this is a specific type of arrangement, and in the specific type of arrangement, it's implied that you own the thing because at any time you can come retrieve it. It's yours.
So at any time, because
if the person who is the steward denies you access to retrieve the demand deposit, then they're separating you from your ownership, right? So you don't own it anymore.
Yeah, they're stealing it. Yeah.
Right, they're stealing it. Exactly. You own this thing that they're keeping from you. and therefore use, like in your words, they're stealing it. Okay. Now, this is perhaps more relative to modern finance, but another thing you can do is a contract. So I could say, hey, Zulu, I trust your financial acumen, and I would like to, I have this money, this quantity of money. It could be silver, it could be fiat, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to say, I am, you're the investor. I'm giving it to you to invest as you see fit. And then I'm going to expect a return in the future. So I'm transferring ownership of you. Transferring ownership to you as part of a contract that in the future I'm going to get more money back. And this actually, there has to be an exchange here or of ownership, or it's not possible, because I can't make sense of a contract with Zulu where I say, hey Zulu, I want you to invest my money and or use it productively, invest it in a stock, invest it in capital goods, whatever. But at any time, I am going to come retrieve this from you so that you have absolutely no means whatsoever of guaranteeing that you're going to be profitable on it. But also, there can't be this time aspect of a contract to even make sense. You can't. I'm not lending this to you for a year, but also I can claim it whenever I want. Because if I can claim it for whenever I want, then the year part doesn't make any sense. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Because I can claim it before that. I can also claim it after that. The year thing doesn't refer to anything anymore. So if there's a time aspect here, it must imply a transfer of ownership. Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're saying is these two things are mutually exclusive with each other. They're mutually exclusive with each other because one's an arrangement in which the depositor is the owner of the thing, and the other is an arrangement where the depositor is not the owner of the thing. And like you said to me earlier, just a few minutes ago, that if you're the owner of something and somebody is keeping it from you, even if it's the person you hired to protect it for you, they're stealing it. This was what we agreed to. So we're saying here's an example of an arrangement that takes place in real life where you deposit something, and it doesn't matter like Zulu was talking about the promise that there's going to be a silver coin. It doesn't matter if it's a fiat currency or just a money substitute where technically it's a silver coin down the road, but we're just changing receipts. All of that's irrelevant to what I'm saying. Whatever it is, it's X. It's just floating out there. It's X. You own it. You deposited it, and you went in to retrieve it, and you're not able to retrieve it. Now, what did you call it when that happens?
It's stealing, but you're making a false dichotomy.
Is that so? Good. Please explain.
So can you think of, let's say I have a claim on some institution. Let's call it the central bank, right? It's a claim, okay?
A claim. I don't know what that means.
Well, it means a contract where if I go over there and I ask for, I don't know, I ask for something, they'll give me something.
No, I object fully.
Under some condition.
I'll tell you why. I object.
Under some condition.
I'm going to tell you why I object.
Well, I haven't completed the hypothetical yet. And let's say with this claim.
Watch this.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, I don't know. The reason I asked you this question, what do you mean by this sort of like this promise? Are you telling me that I own something and they're the steward of this thing that I own? Is that what you're telling me?
Did you repeat your question?
Yes. So you said, like, you introduced this new concept, and it was, it started with a C. What was it?
Contract?
Yeah, no,
claim?
not a contract. They had like claim? A claim. That's exactly the word I'm looking for. So you said I have a claim to something. Does that mean that this something, again, I don't care if it's fiat or a money substitute or whatever, do I own that? When you say claim, are you saying I own that thing?
No.
So I don't own this. I have a claim to something I don't own.
Yeah.
So can you tell me just really quickly, what does it mean to claim something you don't own?
Well, for example, imagine you have insurance, right? Fire insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, your house burnt down. So you now officially have a claim on the insurance company to give you something because of a contract. That's what a claim is.
But you own that money.
No, not really, because there's various.
Because you don't. Hold on. You don't.
There's
have
several
a claim.
clauses inside.
Hold on. You don't own the money, and you don't have a claim until the fire happens. The fire takes place pursuant to the conditions in the contract, and now you have a claim.
Pursuant. Yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
But
okay.
The contract,
I'm saying claim is prior to the actual clause.
Hold on. The contract specifies that under certain conditions, you become the owner of the money. That's what the contract does. The contract's conditions were met, you became the owner of the money.
No,
Now-
not necessarily. There's still a review occurring under the clause of the contract.
You're completely confused about something really important here. The review is not part of the objective truth of the contract. The review is just a limitation that human beings have, that they have to make sure that, like, forensically, that the fire was legitimate and everything like that. But whether or not the fire was an accident or was human caused is already an objectively true thing out there. It's just a fact that human beings have to, we have to go through the process of figuring that out. But if you have a contract that if your house accidentally burned down, you become the owner of the money, you immediately become the owner of the money, regardless of if the insurance company has to do a forensic investigation. And the reason, I'll give you a reason to believe this right away. If you kill somebody, you're guilty of murder prior to the investigators doing that you've killed them.
Yeah, correct. But the problem here is that you're defining claim in a very specific way. I'm saying a claim, you have a claim whenever.
Oh man, what a terrible time to lose him. Here, we'll just give
So
him a
yeah,
second.
I will be clear that Calazar was defining claim in the way that he was defining it, which is like, oh, it's like a claim to insurance agency.
I assume he's coming back. He mentioned earlier, everybody, that he's out for a walk and he's having a little bit of technical difficulty. No, I would love to fill this time and talk about this with everybody. I worry that I'd be a little bit disrespectful if I did that. But on the other hand, he has to reconnect first. So I don't know. Let's go through this. Zulu, you were just saying what I really wanted to say, and I was being kind of shy about it. I didn't want to be rude, but I felt that I let him tell me what the claim meant. I didn't feel that I was introducing a proprietary definition, but was I mistaken?
Yeah, no, you were taking his idea of what a claim was. It's a claim to some money, like when you got an insurance claim, right? That is a claim to some particular property there, right? So, like, the point is, well, that if money is just a contract, it's just a contract disconnected from anything. Well, what is the contract about? What are you claiming from the bank when you go and make that claim? When you're claiming from an insurance agency, you're claiming some money. Okay. What am I claiming from the bank? When you go there from some fractional reserve bank, what happens when you go and make that claim? What is the claim referring to? Right? I feel like we're being perfectly crystal here.
Sweet. Well, luckily our guest is back, and I was hoping that you would be. I didn't want to lose the call there. So, Shrek, if you want a reminder where we were, or are you good to go from there?
Yeah, a reminder.
Okay. The last thing that I remember you saying was that I introduced some sort of proprietary definition of claim. And what I would counter to that is that I'm not introducing anything about a proprietary definition of claim. I'm just letting you tell me what a claim is. So I'm kind of confused about that.
Yeah, so a claim is let's say you have a contract with various clauses, right? So it's saying like you get $10, right? If you
if it's easier for you, we don't have to get it. We don't have to imagine specific conditions.
Yeah.
There's conditions. So there's a contract.
Yeah, there's conditions.
And if conditions are met, you become the owner of whatever.
Correct. And this contract is actually sort of a claim. It's a type of claim.
Okay, so do you own the money before the conditions are met?
No, you don't own something you claim. No.
No. So the question is, we have this is what you said. Now, I'm not putting any words in your mouth, at least not on purpose. There is a contract, and there are conditions. And when the conditions are met, you become the owner of money.
Yeah.
And you don't own the money prior to the conditions being met.
Yeah, you don't own it. No.
You don't own the money prior to the conditions, and you do after the conditions.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like we solved the problem. I don't know if I'm missing something here.
Yeah, but the word claim refers to the actual prior title ownership transfer.
So you're saying a claim refers to a contract where if certain conditions are met, you become the owner of something.
Yeah.
Cool. I agree. Like we can use the word claim that way, but the implications don't change one iota about how contracts work and what the implications are of contracts having conditions.
They do a lot.
It doesn't change what point in the process you become the owner of something, and it doesn't change the fact that fraud is happening when the conditions are met and you're not reimbursed with what was stipulated by the contract.
So you're assuming there's a certain like a condition on this. You're assuming there's no condition basically on a deposit when there obviously is. There's various levels of insurance on a deposit, and a deposit is a deposit of what? It's a deposit on a deposit. It's a claim to a deposit to a deposit.
It doesn't matter what it's a deposit of.
It is because deposits are actually claims, right? And these claims
let's just be clear in our language, right? Let's take the word claim out of here and replace the word with the definition you gave us. Deposits are contracts which have conditions, and you become the owner of the money when the conditions are met.
Yeah,
that's okay. That's how you're using it. So we spoke earlier. You agreed with me that you fully understand what a demand deposit is.
Yeah, but I disagreed that it's no, I disagreed that your formulation of it even happens realistically.
So banks do not tell anybody. So if I'm understanding you correctly, banks do not say that you can retrieve your money whenever you want.
Well, they claim you
and again, I don't care if it's silver or I don't care if it's literally like corn chips. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever it is, you're saying banks do not give their depositors the impression that they can retrieve what has been deposited whenever they want. They don't own.
The thing is they can, but there's various conditions which they can't.
So is it fair for me then, and I want to hear, like, Zulu's maybe going to have the opportunity to bring something to my attention that I'm overlooking here. But is this really not there's no philosophy here, there's no theory at all. All that this conversation really is that we're saying, hey, this guy's going around lying to people. And you're saying, no, what he's saying isn't a lie. So it's just different.
What you're saying is fractional reserve banking is fraudulent. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
I can give you
it somewhat there.
And I can give you an example where FRB is not fraudulent. I have I emit contracts to certain gold, right? To a gold inside, to gold I own. And in this contract, it says you can withdraw your gold at any point, unless XXXX, right?
Like,
okay,
if the branch is closed.
Right. So I think you can have a contract like that, but it means that the bank owns the money, which is just simply not what a bank does. Right? If
it's exactly what a bank
money is a contract, that contract has to refer to something, right? Which is why fiat money doesn't make sense, right? It has to refer to something.
I don't really care about fiat money right now.
Silver, right? That's what it has to refer to. So it has to refer to something. And so, yeah, you can have a gambling game. You can do some gambling if you want in a casino where you just kind of shift money around in this Ponzi scheme manner. You can do that. That's perfectly legitimate. But that's not what a bank is. A bank is a money warehouse. That's what a bank means. That's what everybody knows what a bank means. That's what every fucking bank says what a bank means. Every bank,
really. No bank actually says they're a money
bank means. No bank says that.
I've never seen a bank say that.
Bank of Holland PLC promises pay. No bank says that, do they? No bank says that, do they?
No, I mean, for example, your
promise pay is bearer on demand.
The Bank of England, 96% of the money
says that, do they?
Said there's no money being stored. 96% of the money.
Sorry, no bank says that. No bank says that. This bank says that.
The Bank of England. I don't know which one it is.
This bank says that right there. I also have one from the Bank of England which says something much the same effect.
Yeah, the Bank of England says 96% of the money in circulation is not stored anywhere.
Oh, hold on. I've got one from the Bank of England right here. So, I promised to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £20. That's what the Bank of England says. That's what the Bank of England says. Bank of Scotland says that Bank of Scotland PLC promises to pay its bearer on demand £20 sterling at its registered office, Edinburgh. Two banks. Those are two banks. And they're both saying, exactly what I'm saying. That the bank is indeed holding all of your deposits. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, you just read like this symbolic piece of paper, which is obviously like treated with historical whatever it is, and then you claim it's like actually contractually liable. Really?
What do you think that means? I promised to pay the bearer on demand £20 sterling. What do you think that fucking means, man? Like, are you being crazy here?
It's a historical. It's like symbology. It's historical.
So I just want to make sure that everyone in the audience gets the opportunity to take in what you're saying, because I think that the words that you've put together here are like a gem that should be distributed widely. So you've got a piece of paper, and on this piece of paper, there's no indication in the slightest. There's nothing that says this is a joke. There's no asterisk that says just kidding. The only words that I see on the piece of paper say, Zulu, what's the verbatim? You're muted.
The verbatim is, apologies for that. Bank of Scotland PLC promises to pay the bearer on demand £20 sterling at its registered office, Edinburgh, 16th of August, 2021. That's what it says verbatim on this note.
Right. And so if I'm understanding you correctly, Shrek Eyes, you're saying that this is just a joke, or it's there as like they're paying homage to history. They don't mean it.
Yeah, well, not only that, but across time, the central bank, which is the one that promises this, he kept changing what £25 sterling means. Right? Eventually, it started meaning nothing. It started meaning a piece of paper.
So what does it mean to pay me £20 sterling?
So it depends on what
it means. They just give me this note back. I give them this note, and they give me it back.
Yeah, but you can't do that. Only the commercial bank can.
Actually, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that this is £20 sterling. It says explicitly the opposite of that.
Well, yeah, you're confronting a particular strangeness in history where across time, the central banks started noticing that it doesn't really make sense to hold £25 sterling. And so they just changed the definition of what £25 sterling means.
So you might say that they committed fraud against me, because it very clearly says, I promised to pay the bearer on demand £20 sterling. It clearly says that. Right? What does £20 sterling mean? It means £20 of sterling silver. That's what it means. Like, come on, where do you think the word pound comes from?
So you're referring to two. Okay, you're referring to two types of money, right?
So here's an example for you.
Bank. There's notes by bank. It's different, right?
Here's two literate people.
Fiat is an instance of fractional reserve banking. It's not.
Right. So I don't think that's the point he's making. But let me just ask you this: there's two people here. I think Zulu and I are both semi-literate. We're under the impression that we're supposed to own the money that's in the bank. We are attesting to the fact that every interaction we've ever had with a bank throughout our entire lives has included the implication or the explicit recognition that we own what's in the bank. That's thrown out. We're either just lying or we've been lied to by malicious bank tellers that don't apply to the banking system, in your view. And we've also presented you with actual written documentation. Zulu has actual writing that says that he owns something. So all the testimony is out. All the writing is out. So can you show me where the bank says that when you go and you make a deposit that they take ownership of it? And that you get your money back at a specific time in the future?
You're making a broader claim about fractional reserve banking.
So you can't do that.
No, okay, you can admit the central bank is. I can concede that the central bank is fraudulent.
So you cannot do that.
I can concede the central bank is fraudulent. But
but when I ask you like a question, I'm like, hey, what's your take on this question? And you're like, here's a totally unrelated statement. No. What I'm asking you is, I've just given you all the evidence that we have for why we are justified in claiming ownership of the money we have in the bank. I gave you, we've given you personal testimony. We've given you
Well, I'm
written
doing like a
written
sort of
word. Okay,
conceptual
hold
analysis,
on,
right?
hold on. We've
When
given
you
you
say
all this.
bank, you're
Hold
referring to
on,
the central
relax.
bank
You're
and the
confusing. I
commercial
think you're
bank at the
confusing
same
yourself
time.
a little bit here, and I want to give you the best opportunity to answer the question that I can. Okay, so that's all of our evidence. So what we're saying is, okay, you're saying no. Actually, the bank is operating on a totally different paradigm. The bank is being honest with us, and the bank is telling us, hey, you give us this money, not yours anymore. We're going to do whatever you want with it, or whatever we want with it. And then if you come back in to get it, you just you recognize that we just might not be able to pay you, and that's cool. And that's the interaction you think the bank is having with everybody. Okay, fair enough. Can you please demonstrate to us a reason that we should accept that claim?
That's not what I'm claiming. I'm saying that's a hypothetical situation where fractional reserve banking, I almost said fraudulent reserve banking, is not fraudulent.
What do you think, Sulu? Like, am I not? I'm not capturing his version of banking.
Yeah, so he's
to his
speaking in some
satisfaction.
fantasy world where banking doesn't mean banking, and where people actually are saying
defining
something
banking as
different
like
to
a
what the
warehouse.
fractional
Nobody-
reserve banks actually say. He's speaking in a fantasy, fundamentally.
No, it's not. I'm bringing in a concept of banking which has existed for 400 years, and you're claiming it's fraudulent.
I think
because
this
of
is
false
exists more than
dichotomy
400
between
years.
time
It
deposits
says
and demand deposits.
Bank of
You've-
Scotland PLC promises to pay the bearer on demand £20 sterling at its registered office, Edinburgh. It
Okay,
says that on my
central
note.
banking fiat is fraudulent. Okay, but that's not referring to the commercial bank.
Where do you think it comes from? It comes from fractional reserve banking. That's where it comes from.
Fiat comes from fractional reserve banking.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. There were.
How do you think it comes about then? How do you think fiat money comes about if not through fractional reserve banking?
In the
Like, what are you
US case,
talking about here?
in America's case, the central bank was doing fractional reserves, right? They weren't keeping all the dollars synchronized with the gold flux. So, but that's irrelevant to the actual case of fractional reserve banking in commercial banks.
Yeah, so for fraudulent reserve banking, what you have, if you have actual fractional reserve banking and not just pure fiat, where it's just lying to you, what you have is that there are multiple claims, multiple property titles for any given piece of gold in the vault. That's what you have. You can't have multiple property titles for a single property. That's fraud.
There are multiple claims, not multiple property titles.
So the bank owns the money.
Yes. You only have a claim
1,000
to the
people.
money.
Okay,
You don't.
so you missed something earlier, Shrek. I want to give you the chance to account for it in what you're saying now. And this is real. This is on track with what Zulu's saying as well. So it's not a diversion. We've already heard from you that it's not a demand deposit. So when you deposit your money in the bank, you are transferring your ownership to the bank. Okay, you've made that clear. But what I think you're confused about is that you're also saying that it is a time deposit. And it can't be a time deposit because if a time deposit means you are transferring ownership until a specific time. If you are transferring if a time deposit without the time aspect is not a transfer of ownership at all. So
why not?
So you're transferring the ownership for an indefinite amount of time. So
yeah.
I wonder, how can you make sense of a contract that looks like this? I'm giving you ownership over my property, and there's no condition at all for me coming back into possession of it that I can.
No, there are conditions. It's just not functional to time. There's
okay,
no,
share the.
I don't know why you're
that to
bringing
us.
time to this.
You don't know why I'm bringing what to it?
Time. There's no reason to bring in time to this.
Right, because I explained earlier that there's two fundamental types of arrangements. There's time deposits and demand deposits. So share with us now the contract that we enter into when we deposit in the bank that's neither a demand deposit nor a time deposit.
Okay, so you give me $1 bill. You're saying you have a claim on this $1 bill under this contract.
No, stop. That's the problem right there. I'm giving you the $1 bill. You're saying that you've taken ownership of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I have a claim on the $1 that you now own. And what you mean when you say claim is that me and you are now in a contract.
Correct.
And when certain conditions are met, you have to pay me $1.
Yeah,
Okay, what are the conditions?
that I come over and want to take it, and I don't know if you have reserves in your, and if you want to. Let's just put it at that.
Right. So the condition is I can take ownership. I can fulfill the contract if you have the money.
And if I want to give it to you, yeah.
Isn't that always the case with property? You can come, you have a claim on my property if I want to give it to you.
No, that's not always the case.
No, you
Unless
can
you're
come
like
to me
evil
and say, I want your water bottle. And I go, no, I don't want to give it to you. It's like, okay, well then it isn't fulfilled. Like that's the case for all property.
Yeah, but
What you're saying
let's
is
say
that the bank legitimately entirely owns the money
okay,
you
let's say
give.
there's this really cool guy, right? And you give $1 to him, and you say, you know what? If you want, give it to me later. But if you really want to keep it to yourself.
Right,
Is
that's
this
the
possible?
case for all property.
No, it's not the case for all property, unless you're like
Okay,
evolutionary
so what property
capitalist.
could I not give to you if I wanted to give it to you? Like your
Well,
body? Is that what you're saying? Like it's just fun? It's alienable? Is that all you're saying about money? Is that it's alienable?
what do you mean?
Okay, so you're saying that the condition for the bank is that they want to give you the money.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only condition they've got to meet.
Yeah,
Fundamentally.
theoretically, let's do
So
that.
the bank
Let's say that's
truly
the
owns all your
condition.
money.
Yeah.
So they could just say, no, we want to use all your money for the things we want to do, and you can't take any of it.
They could, but that ruin their profit because everyone else would see that and would say, "What the fuck,
I mean,
dude?
they
I'm
can
not going to
make
give
a
you
lot
any
of
money."
profit out of that.
We're not interested in what the incentives are for going into this contract or not. We're interested in the actual attributes of the contract.
Yeah, I'm giving you the attributes. Yeah, the bank can take all of it and say, "No, fuck you. I'm keeping it."
And you think that's what a bank means? A bank means I'm just giving you all my money and trusting that you will give it back to me in the future. You
Yeah,
think
that's
what
exactly what a bank is. Yeah.
I think you're a crazy person.
Yeah. When you give money to a bank, you trust that it's going to give it back to you. Yeah, exactly.
You're conflating two very different things here. Okay, the fact
Okay,
that
I don't care
you
how you
don't
define
know.
banking, too.
Hold
Okay,
on.
I'm defining my own banking. Okay.
I gotta mute you for a second here. The fact that we have uncertain access to the future and we have to make some sort of guess or expectation about whether or not a person that we're in a contract with is going to return our property to us is an entirely separate thing from whether or not that's an actual feature of the contract.
Well, I'm just giving you a hypothetical, right, of a fractional reserve banking, which isn't fraudulent. I'm giving you an example.
Well, on the contrary, we're trying to explain that it is.
I just explained it to you how you can have a contract that says I'm going to give this back to you if I want to. Is that a possible contract?
That's not even a contract, though, is what I'm saying. Because
how is it not a contract? The clause is if I want to give it back to you.
Every single piece of property, right? Do you think there's a contract between everybody ever and all pieces of property that they own? Like, no.
No, I don't. I don't believe that. No.
Right. So that's not what a contract means. There is no contract between me and Galazar that he can take my water bottle if I
yeah,
want.
because you guys never declared it. Yeah.
If I want to give it to him. Right. That
but
is
it does no. What Zulu's saying to you is that you've designed the contract such that it's irrelevant if someone declares it. The conditions.
It's not irrelevant at all.
Nothing changes after the declaration of the contract. The situation of the conditions is already true.
Well, something changed. You basically said the bank.
Prior to the contract, it was already the case that the bank could give you the money if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And that's also the case after the contract.
Exactly.
So what changed?
Well, before it didn't have your money, right? It didn't take your money.
It still doesn't have your money because you think the bank owns the money.
Yeah, correct. Nothing changed.
Nothing changed. That's not where the change is. Where is the change?
No, something changed. We had an explicit contract where.
Which contract? A contract referring to what?
A contract referring to my ability to give you something that I want when you want it.
Want to. So currently, Galazar and me have a contract over this water bottle because I could give it to him if I wanted to.
Yeah. Did you ever declare this contract? Did this ever happen?
No, sorry, no, I didn't. But do I already have this contract with him?
No, you don't. I don't think so.
But I could. But it is currently the case that I could give this water bottle to him if he came over and visited me. And I go, yeah,
it is.
take the water bottle.
It is the case. You don't have a contract though.
So that's the exact same case with the bank, in your view.
You're doing like what EvoCap does. Yeah,
I think
there is an
entirely
incentive
confused
structure.
about this. I think
There's
we
an
should
incentive structure for the bank to give something back.
Well, I have to say that we just hit the 3-hour mark, and as much as I'm enjoying this conversation on the fractional reserve banking, I think we're going to have to call it because it's a 1-hour show.
It's raining here really hard, and I'm sorry I couldn't debate very well and kept leaving. It was pretty not
No, those circumstances are out of your control. There's no worries about that. We were happy to wait for you. You weren't gone very long. I think it'd be great if we picked this conversation up another time because it's an interesting one, and certainly we've narrowed in on a very specific domain of. I would say, from my point of view, we've got all the terms isolated that we need to work out now. Maybe we'll have the opportunity to do that. But for the time being, I think at the 3-hour mark, and we're kind of running in a circle. I think it's a good amicable time to call the show for today. But I'll tell you what, if you want to do so quickly, why don't I give you the next 60 seconds to make the final statement before we go into the outro?
Okay, so when the history of fractional reserve banking, I'm just going to say one thing. Google endogenous model of money. There's no multiplier effect. Money is an IOU to itself, and the commercial banks give an IOU to this IOU of itself. Bye.
Man, it sounded like he was about to make like a really long outro or like a really long final statement, and then he just like he bait and switched me and he hit us with that.
Yeah.
Okay, well that was good. I look forward to getting into it more. I'll be honest. I think that I have some more reading to do myself because I think that doing some more reading is going to give me the opportunity to communicate about this a little bit more clearly. It's always a good time to improve your semantics. Zulu, we're going to go into the outro now. I think everybody knows what's going on with the show. So why don't I give the floor to you? You can do the outro, and we'll call it there.
Yeah, definitely. First thing I'll say, make sure everybody subscribe to the channel. Keep watching the show. We need to get monetized on this channel. It can't be monetized yet, so you can't send super chats yet. If you can send super chats, then we can prioritize those over callers, and people can send money to the channel. Obviously, we will have to edit out a little part of this stream because there were some untoward individuals. But I would say, in reference to that last caller, I do love just the visual. Like, this is one good reason to keep cash on me, is I can just pull it out of my wallet and go and just read it off. And it's like, okay, it's very clearly fraud. Right? They're just defrauding me. I always love, even though people can't read this on the stream, they could look it up. I always love having this ability in my pocket, as it were. But yeah, subscribe to the channel, keep watching the show, and how close are we to monetization on this show?
We are, I think, let's say approximately 200 subscribers short.
So we can reach that gap. We've already got 300 subscribers. So there you go. So keep subscribing. Just please subscribe to the show. I normally don't ask for subscribers because I think it's bullshit, but it's not bullshit up to the point of monetization. It doesn't matter if you're like 1,000 subscribers or 10 million subscribers as far as YouTube is concerned. If you reach the monetization threshold, that's all I'll ask you to subscribe towards.
Excellent. And if you're ever in a contract that you want to get out of, just tell the arbitrator that the wording on the contract is just a historical artifact, and you're good to go.
Indeed.